supported in the past, and I also think obviously with the every year certification, we'll get a bite at this apple in less than a year to go ahead and look and see how they did with this, and if we don't like it, obviously it can go away.
Has the Sunoco sign been removed?
I don't know the answer to that question, whether it is or is not. I know that the canopy is down. I don't know if the gas sign, I'm not sure whether it is or it's not. It should be, but it will be if it's not yet.
It is going to be removed, because I think it was there when I drove by.
I couldn't tell you, sitting here, whether that's still there or not.
I would like to have that be a condition that it be removed.
Which is what?
It's a big pole sign that says Sunoco.
I'll accept that as a condition if it's within the regulations to require it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I don't know if they're entitled to that they could change out the sign.
I don't know whether the other tenants in the building are already on that sign or not. You got Enterprise Rent-A-Car and the deli. I don't know whether those folks are on that sign or not.
Right.
But that was a Sunoco pole sign, correct?
It was. Well, it's a pole sign. I don't know whether the other sitting here, I don't know whether the other tenants
Do you
are
have
on that sign or
the
not.
plans in front of you on this?
Do I?
The plans.
Yes.
And everybody who has them out in front, I just take notice of the corner of the patio to parking spot 22. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. No, it's the same thing. Yeah, well, it's a little close to the patio, I'm thinking, too.
What sheet are you looking at?
I'm looking at,
RE1? Those spots marked by 22?
RE1?
It's the top sheet of the,
Hey, you can take mine. 'Cause we have them up here.
how close this parking spot is to the corner of the structure.
You understand what I'm saying?
Spot on the,
Yeah, it's labeled differently on the, it would be parking space name 24, I guess, on the survey. They show some proposed bollards there to protect the patio at the face of those spaces, across all of those spots.
Yeah, I understand. I see the bollard on the corner.
Yeah, so we've got one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And 1,
Is that
2,
another-
3, 4,
yeah.
5 across the front. Is there a parking lot on the side of that? There's a parking spot on the side of that,
It's right now it's a through driveway that they're gonna putting a wood barrier across to close it.
okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So, Jim, are these the only parking spots? Well, where are the rest of the parking spots?
No, it's on, if you look at the site plan, there are 24 in total. There's an existing parking lot behind the building, and there are a handful of spaces, 2 spaces in front, and they're proposing 4 new spaces in front of the building underneath where the pump canopy formerly was. So yeah, the architectural plan does not show the entirety of the site plan.
Okay, does anybody have any more questions on this application? Any more discussion? You ready to vote? Okay, there's one condition on the motion, to have the pole sign removed on the property, the Sunoco pole sign removed on the property. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Next item, 2055 Black Rock Turnpike. Application of June Lee to establish a dry cleaner in a portion of an existing building in the Design Commercial District.
Okay, this property is a commercial retail building with multiple tenants. The end tenant was a retail paint store for many years, is recently closed. The applicant seeks to replace that use with a dry cleaning business. There are no exterior changes to the building proposed. It's a change in use permit because we classify dry cleaners as a different use than retail, so it requires your approval. There's no additional parking required as a change, for this change of use. We did receive, just shortly before this meeting started, a letter that you have got on your table saying that they can't tell because there's not an A2 survey whether this is compliant with parking or not. I respectfully disagree with that letter. We do have an architect's site plan that shows the layout of the parking. The spaces are, in total, non-conforming by about 15 spaces. If this building were being built under today's standards, they would need more parking, but it exists as a retail building, and we don't distinguish dry cleaning to require more parking than any other retail use. So from a change of use perspective, it would be my opinion that it doesn't require any additional parking. I would suggest that the issue raised in the letter is not particularly germane. I think the primary reason, obviously, as he discloses in the letters, he's representing a nearby dry cleaner that's opposed to the application.
Okay.
Other than that, in my opinion, it complies.
Okay. Have a motion on this item.
I'd like a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion approved by Commissioner Canelli. Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Grau. Any discussion?
Based on staff description, it meets our parking requirements, not today's, but the ones that, the site was developed on. I never like to get in the way of a fight between two dry cleaners, but that's, with that said, in this case, already with the way retail in town, if anyone's driven along the Black Rock Turnpike corridor, you've seen how restaurant retail seems to be in a bit of a flux right now, and a bit of, I would say it's kind of a challenging time. I'm at least grateful there seems to be what hopefully would be a stable business that would take on this property, and so I would support this.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of unfortunate, although not within our discretion, this is going right adjacent to another dry cleaner. So a small strip mall is going to have dry cleaner, and a couple other businesses.
It's the end tenant of this property, and the end tenant of the adjacent property is also a dry cleaner.
Okay, so, right, okay, the Green Hill is on the right side of one, and this would be on the
Correct.
left side of the other.
Correct.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, but I mean, if it does comply, it doesn't matter, we can't ask, why, do we have too many dry cleaners or not? I mean, they want to do, the parking is pretty non-compliant there. I've been in that parking lot. It's a concern, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But it's no more non-compliant than what was there now.
Correct. I would agree if they were proposing a use that by our regulations requires more parking than the previous use, but that is not the case here.
So, yeah, I think we probably need to support it.
Any other comments? Yeah, I'm going to reluctantly support this application, but I think we should also make it known to the new tenants that are coming in that our regulations for signs in the windows, and I don't want to see any of these dry cleaning parking signs either in the parking lot. That these illegal signs have been popping up all over town for different retailers and whatnot. So I think we should make that clear if they do come in. And that would be my thought on that.
Wouldn't need spaces reserved for ABC dry cleaner?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they all do that.
Yeah, well, that's...
Do you want to make that a condition, or you think it's simply a warning from the staff?
I don't know if it needs to be a condition or not, but just to be notified.
We can certainly make it a condition. I don't
If you want to make it as a condition of approval?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with accepting it.
The parking and the signs and the windows, or
No,
both?
I actually know what you're saying about reserved spaces in the signs. It makes it, certainly let them know, taking on this is, as the secretary said, there's a bad parking lot, they should do that. So
Right.
be a little bit careful.
Because then we're going to have a fight with dry cleaners and parking spots, and I don't want to...
So I accept that condition to that motion.
Okay.
I'm sorry, are signs part of this application?
No, what I think, what is suggested is to just reinforce
Yeah.
the regulations that no illuminated window
Right.
signage is permitted, and no reserved parking space signage
Also
is to be
percentage
installed.
of the percentage of the windows, too, isn't it?
No, the only thing we prohibit is internally illuminated signage
Okay, I
inside
thought
the
it was a
building.
percentage of the windows, then, space.
No.
And no flashing signs.
Correct.
Yeah, no, we definitely should reiterate that, because we don't want to, and again, with the parking too, you can't, replace, how many spaces they have in the lot, 15?
There's 75 or so parking spaces there, because this parcel shares the parking lot with the bank, Wells Fargo Bank on the
Okay.
corner, so the parking wraps
Okay, this
kind of
road
around the
wraps
building.
around.
So there's more parking on the Stilson Road side of the property, but I understand what you're saying. You don't want them to reserve spaces for their own
Correct.
tenancy in front of them.
Correct.
That's fine.
Okay, so the motion is to approve with the conditions as stated by staff regarding the signage in the windows and the parking signs. All those in favor? Aye? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, item carries unanimously. Okay, next will be the public hearing, and let's take a 2-minute recess. You guys ready?
So, okay.
Okay, let's resume the meeting. Next item on the public hearing is zoning regulation amendment, application of Post Road Residential LLC to amend Section 10 of the zoning regulations, proposed 10.18 transit-oriented downtown district, continued from 7/11/17. I assume we're hearing this along with number 2 on the agenda, 333 Uncle Road, request for determination of qualifications as a transit-oriented downtown district and special permit application of Post Road Residential LLC pertaining to a 118-unit residential development in the design residential district continued from 7/11/17. Attorney Rezio.
Chairman, members of the commission, Raymond Rizio, I'm happy to be before you tonight. Just out of trying to, as you remember, we got through about I would say, most of our presentation last time. Rather than, I'll do a summary at the end and try and take you through. I think one of the biggest issues that this project, and certainly the questions that the commissioners have been concerned, I think some of the neighbors that have addressed in letters to this commission, and some of the things we've addressed over the last few weeks with neighbors and adjoining neighbors, is traffic. That was our last expert for tonight is Mike Galante, and I'll have Mike do his traffic presentation. I'll sum up the proposal, answer some of your questions, and I think hopefully we can proceed in a pretty orderly and expeditious manner tonight.
The traffic person.
Yeah, just go after.
Okay, be great.
Okay?
Yep. Mr. Galante.
Good evening, Mike Galante, principal of Frederick Clark Associates, located here in Fairfield. What I'd like to do is kind of give you a detailed summary of what's in the traffic report. And before I get started with the slides that Chris is doing there for me, is just touch on a couple things before we get started. I notice Commission reads my traffic reports, and I actually appreciate that, because then we can have a very constructive dialogue, and I can hopefully answer questions you may have. And hopefully my presentation hopefully answers some of those questions before you ask them. But before we get started, just, and I've said this before, the purpose of the traffic study really is to determine what is the impact of a development. In this case, it's a residential development on Uncle Road, 118 units, access to Uncle Road itself, on-site parking for that development. Because it's a residential development, we focus on the weekday morning and afternoon peak hours, and we very specifically look at 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the afternoon. The reason why we pick those time periods is that's usually the highest volume of traffic for a development such as this, residential. It's also typically the highest time of volume on the adjacent roads.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Galante, I'm asking this question because it actually doesn't deal with the data. So I don't want you to feel frustrated that you're trying to begin the presentation.
That's
You haven't even
okay.
gotten to the data. But it's an important distinction that I want, hopefully, my fellow commissioners to understand, and also the folks who are here tonight to understand. When you are presenting to us this presentation for this discrete property, that is, what will the impact be of building 118 units, apartment units on that site, and how Uncle Road will handle, and the surrounding area will handle the traffic flows
For our development.
for that particular development.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
That's what you'll be talking about.
Yes, and you're reading my mind.
But
so
you
perfect.
know, well, spoiler alert, I'm betting it's insignificant. But here's the thing. You are addressing, though, the fact that to create this development, that we will have to first pass a transit-oriented development district that will encompass 30 additional current acres that touch or are incorporated within that district. That is, sort of a circle around the train station, because this is not for one property, this is for a transit-oriented development district to be overlaid from Fairfield. So you won't be talking about the impact of creating the TODD, you'll strictly be talking about the impact of the 118-unit building that is enabled to be there, because otherwise, on this property of 3 acres, multifamily in this zone would be only 20 units. To do 118 units, we have to take the overlay system we developed at Fairfield Metro, which is primarily industrial in that area,
Yes.
and create the same kind of thing here at Fairfield. So, for the record, this presentation about its impact on traffic, which I'm sure will be very reasonable, this is not a study of what happens when we have to first approve the predicate of this project. In other words, you can't have this. You can't have 118, you can't have 60, you can't have 40. You can only have 20 on this. You can't split the difference. In this zone, on 3 acres, multifamily without a TODD, that's a transit-oriented development district, which we only now have at Metro Center. That is not what this report deals with. It deals only with the one property that at first will be enabled to come into existence at 118 units by us approving a TODD. This is strictly about this property, not the impact of passing the TOD, correct?
You are correct,
Great,
yes.
please proceed.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for that clarification. And I would assume over the Metro Center area, if you will, of that train station, that zoning, I don't think there was a study for all the properties that potentially could change over there. I'm kind of asking the question.
Well, I know that, for example, we discussed in a previous hearing about the possibility of a cluster of properties near Ardmore Street that might have benefited from petitioning their way into the TODD there, but I won't get into back and forth about it. I appreciate your patience with me. I just want to make sure that our audience, as they try to understand what's happening, and concerned citizens, my fellow colleagues, that for anything to happen here, we must create a transit-oriented development district that will cover 30 more acres currently that is not Tomlinson Middle School, that is not the 2 condominium complexes you know of now, they're Mosswood and the other one, that doesn't include the train station parking lot. There will be 30 acres of land already that will be covered. And of course also, we can talk about this with Mr. Rizzo later, that the TODD can of course expand. All you need is to apply to do it. So you won't be dealing with that. You'll just be dealing with this project at this location that happens to require this transit-oriented development district, which you can read more about by looking at your own zoning regulations, which are right on the website of the town of Fairfield. You can look around 10.7, I think they are in there. Take a look.
Okay.
Thanks. Go ahead.
And again, thanks for your comments, as always.
Go ahead.
Did you choose 4 to 6 p.m. as being?
Well, let him give his presentation.
Yeah,
I'm sure he'll get to
Seems
that.
like the least
Yeah.
dense to me.
I'll cover that, actually. And that's where, actually, I was just about when we stopped for a moment. In a traffic study, which we're doing for this residential development, following guidelines that Connecticut DOT basically asks us or requires us to follow, we would typically look at I'll call it commuter peak periods on a weekday morning and a weekday afternoon. If I was doing a shopping center, I would look at a weekday afternoon, like a Thursday or Friday, and then a Saturday midday. So depending on the type of development, we look at certain time periods. So typically people are going to work from their home or apartment, typically 7 to 9 in the morning. And if you look at traffic volumes in general around town, and I've done lots of studies in town, typical peaks are 7 to 9 in the morning, and again in the afternoon from 4 to 6. Now, someone might say tonight, well, there's an express train from New York City that comes in at about 7:05, which I happened to see when I was leaving my house tonight, and traffic off Mill Plain Road. If you look at the volume of traffic on Umpqua Road at 7 o'clock at night, I can assure you it's much lower than from 4 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So we do our traffic counts during those time periods, and we're actually doing video counting now as opposed to people sitting on the corner with buttons. Seriously, and it's a database for us. We've actually submitted these videos to the state of Connecticut to kind of support our findings in traffic counting, and it's very helpful on their side and our side for any traffic study. But we do our counts, and we do it in 15-minute increments for the 2 hours in the morning and the 2 hours in the afternoon. We also have data from Connecticut along the Post Road that clearly shows the peak patterns are generally 7 to 9 in the morning and again 4 to 6 in the afternoon. It's a very typical pattern of traffic. If you look at the volumes on Uncle Road, we identified, and if you look at the 15-minute peaks, if you will, using the intersection of Old Post Road, Uncle Road, and Post Road by the community theater corner, if you look at those volumes in 15-minute increments for the entire intersection, meaning the approach volumes, it's almost flat, which is interesting. If you go to the Uncle Road approach, which is the southbound approach coming over the railroad bridge to the traffic signal by the community theater, you'll see a couple spikes in the volume on that approach, meaning traffic going past our site itself. That's included in the volumes as a whole, and it's included in our analysis because we've identified in the morning, I'm kind of jumping into the boards a little bit, but we identified the peak time in the morning as 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. for volume, and in the afternoon 4:45 to 5:45 p.m. Volumes don't change that much, but you'll see two or three spikes in the Uncle Road pattern, if you will, as far as volumes in a 15-minute period. But as the intersection as a whole, I hate to use it and say it's flat, because you don't typically see that, but it's a flat total volume in 15-minute increments. So we pick the volumes that are highest at the intersection, and that becomes our baseline condition. Again, it's the highest volumes. Someone might say, well, you should have analyzed 10 o'clock in the morning or a different time. And the volumes are just not the same. They tend to drop off in the morning after 9:30. And yes, it depends on the I-95 traffic. And it'll peak again at lunchtime. It'll back down a little bit. Yes, there's a school nearby. There's a little short spike in the volumes, if you will. And then you'll see the highest volumes again 4 to 6 p.m. And it's the commuter going home from work to home. Some of us go home at that time, some of us don't go home at that time, but that's the peak condition. And that's the basis of the traffic counting program and why we select certain times. If we were doing the school, and you know I do probably most of the school work for the town in the school district, we look at different times related to that school. Because it's, what is the impact of that school on the roadway system? So there are different peaks that you look for different types of lane uses. Okay? And then I can certainly answer any more questions later on if I need to. Chris, you want to just, well, we'll start on this slide. The slides that you see behind you are from the traffic report. And if you look at the bottom where it says F2, just for references, that's figure 2 in the report itself. So everything you see tonight is actually in the report, and we put the figure number in the bottom so you can follow us. This is simply a graphic that shows the current street system characteristics of Uncle Road, and you can almost see my red dot. Site is here, top left corner, train station, Post Road, Uncle Road goes up to the high school, middle school, and so on. Thomason is right there. This simply is our data collection, parking regulations on street, pavement width, pavement markings. We, of course, obtain traffic signal timing plans from Connecticut DOT, and we use that information in the study itself. Chris? We collected traffic. Again, it's from in the morning, we obtain the volumes. We pick the peak volumes. This is a table, which is table 2 in the report, that simply identifies the two-way volumes that we use as a baseline condition. And as you know, and keep in mind, when we look at, and we do analyses of intersections, we look at the volumes by turning movement. We look at peaking characteristics of that volume. We put those volumes on top of the roadway characteristics. If it's a one-lane approach, a two-lane approach. If it's a traffic signal, we plug in the cycle lengths and so on. And we analyze that as a baseline condition, and then we go from there. We go to a no-build condition eventually, and then we go to a build condition, which includes site traffic. Just for reference, Post Road, which is on the top, in round numbers, has about 1,400 vehicles two-way in the morning peak, and it has almost the same volume in the afternoon peak. Uncle Road has, in the morning, about 544 vehicles near the site frontage. In the morning, in the afternoon, slightly lower at 489 vehicles. Just for reference purposes, the existing driveway, which did not have the commuter parking, and when we counted, had about 4 or 5 vehicles in and out during those same time periods. Chris? Moving on, this figure, and I know it's difficult to read, but it's figure 3 in the report itself, and it's simply the summary of the morning peak hour volumes. And again, it's the 8 to 9 I wrote that right. It's 8 to 9 in the morning. I said 7 to 8 before. 8 to 9 in the morning as far as the volumes. We counted in front of the site itself. We counted at the Post Road intersection at Uncle Road by the traffic signal. And we counted the Uncle Place intersection in that traffic signal, which is just beyond the bank. Those two traffic signals operate together, so we analyze those as one, but certainly two intersections. Chris, you can go to the next one. Next figure is simply the summary of the afternoon volumes. Again, 4:45 to 5:45 p.m. Volumes, and that looks like an AM there on the top, but it's PM. It is just the volumes that we use as a baseline condition. And as you can see, if you look at that figure, we counted pedestrians and activity at the intersections along Post Road. Next, Chris. Accident history, and that one's very difficult to read. There we go. We obtained accident data from the police and CONDOT as far as accident database. And if you look at Uncle Road and the old Post Road intersection and the Uncle Place intersection, 3-year period, which is a standard that we must follow, following CONDOT guidelines, and this town follows the same guidelines. We obtained data from 2014 through 2016, a 36-month or a 3-year period, and that section of road had a total of 32 accidents. Jumping down, well, what type of accidents are occurring there? And you had mostly rear-end collisions, 41% of those accidents. That is clearly related to the volume of traffic on Post Road between those intersections, and you'll know at some points during the day that it is stop and go without a doubt. Next, Chris. Next slide is Uncle Road. This is Route 1, Uncle Road. You can go to the next one. That's just a breakdown of accidents by daylight roadway surface. And I just want to make the point that a majority of the accidents on the Post Road are rear-end collisions, and it's because of the stop-and-go traffic between those traffic signals. Chris? This chart is Uncle Road itself, and it's from Paper Mill down to the Post Road intersection, so it includes the site frontage. And you actually need to go back one if you can. It had, yeah, that's good, thank you. There were a total of 18 accidents on that stretch of road, and the majority of the accidents were side swipes. And if you look at the data more closely, we did some collision diagrams to better understand the accident information. The majority of those accidents occur where you have parking of both sides of Uncle Road in the vicinity of the community theater frontage, going up the hill towards the railroad overpass. And that's where the accidents show, and quite frankly, it's related to the parking maneuvers on Uncle Road itself. Chris?
And that was all vehicles, it looks like? No pedestrian, no cyclists?
No, it's all vehicle accidents, yes, and there are no pedestrian-related accidents that we recorded in that data.
Yeah.
I know someone, we saw some correspondence that there was a student hit at some point, but I didn't see that in the reports. So we can always continue looking beyond this. Just as a point, we need to go to Connecticut DOT for approval also in this development, because we have 100 units or more. We automatically need to go to CONDOT for approval, review and approval. So there's another step beyond this. Chris? You can go to the next one. The next step really was to estimate the amount of traffic this type of development will generate. And it's not numbers that I pick, but it's a document that you've heard before, the Trip Generation Handbook, and it's based on actual studies. And it says that a development of this type and size, apartment low-rise is really the category, would generate 61 trips in the morning peak and 82 trips during the afternoon peak. Now, we believe our resident might be a different type of person, but we're using the book numbers for a moment. And the next step, because we are near a train station, we're assuming, and the state of Connecticut agrees with us, that we can say 15% of our residents, in this case, are walking to the train station.
What
So we're low,
What percentage?
15%.
15.
15, yes, not 50, 15. So if you look at the numbers, we're estimating that we're eliminating or reducing the traffic count, if you will, site traffic volumes by 9 to 12 vehicles during the peak hours. And if you go to you can see it, overall, we're estimating that this development will generate 52 trips during the morning peak hour, that's in and out total, in a 1-hour period, and 70 trips in the afternoon peak hour. We're putting that traffic on top of the baseline volumes that we talked about a minute ago. But there's another step in there that I don't have the graphics for it. I just try to summarize in cut down on the number of graphics I'm showing you. But as you know, we take our baseline volumes, which is current data, we expand it to a future year with a growth rate, and traffic related to other developments that are coming online in the Fairfield Center area. Thorpe Street, for example, Beaumont Street, and the one on Sherman Street, for example, those developments, which we also did, are included in our so-called background traffic volume in the projection. So we increase our background volumes. Yes?
When you did this traffic study, did you take into account Thorpe Street?
Did I take it into account?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's one of the projects we added in.
You did it.
Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Chris, you can go to the next slide. And again, that's table 4 in the report itself. This graphic, which is figure 7 in the document, which is simply the distribution and assignment of site traffic. We look at traffic patterns, we look at roadways that are serving our site, we certainly know the area, and we estimate where our site traffic will come and go, of course, from the driveway on Uncle Road itself. We estimate 15% will go towards the middle school, high school, if you will, towards Mill Plain Road, Barlow Road, and the remaining 85% is going towards the Post Road. I do show 15% of our site traffic going into and through the north side parking lot of the train station. Now, keep in mind, that is not the 15% credit I took before. It happens to be the same percentage. The 15% transit credit, I'm assuming that resident is walking to the train station. Hopefully they are, and not driving to the train station. And I think there might be some confusion with that. I'm assuming, and I believe this is the case, someone might disagree with me, but someone that's living at this site could easily turn into the parking lot, drive through the parking lot to access Mill Plain Road.
Mm-hmm.
So we're accounting for that in our assumptions. The remaining traffic, a majority of the traffic, will bring to the Post Road, and of course to the intersection of Uncle Road, Old Post Road and Post Road, and then we're splitting in on the Post Road. It's certainly more traffic is going, I'll call it to the west or Westport. It's about 50%, and remaining 20% is going towards North Benson in that direction on the Post Road itself. We take those percentages, we apply it to the site traffic estimates that we had in Table 4 before, and we distribute that traffic onto the roadway system for the morning and afternoon peak hours. We add that traffic to the no-bill traffic volumes that include a growth rate and traffic from other developments, to Thorpe Street, Sherman, and Beaumont that we mentioned before. And we bring it up to what's called a billed traffic condition. And then we analyze in a couple more steps. Chris? This is simply it's figure 9 from the report. It's simply the site traffic being applied to the distribution or the percentages that I mentioned a minute ago, and we add that traffic to the roadway system in the morning. And the next slide, which is F10, is simply the afternoon peak hour. And that brings us to the step of the billed traffic volumes. This table, which is the chairman's favorite table, and we provide it because the commission's interested in this, and it's an important piece of information, but it's not, I don't want to say it's not part of the traffic analysis, but it just gives you an indication of the increase in traffic related to the site traffic added to each roadway. All the percentages are quite small. You'll see Post Road, different locations, Uncle Road north of the site itself, and so on. The last one, Uncle Road, south of the existing site access drive, you'll see an increase in traffic of 8.5% in round numbers. That's where we're adding the majority of our traffic, to Uncle Road. Uncle Road has a volume of about 500 to 600 vehicles during peak hours. And if we add the site traffic to that, that's the increase. And you'll see the numbers there. We're adding about, in round numbers, 45 trips of vehicles to Uncle Road during the morning peak. And that's an indication of the increase in traffic. The other locations are all very, very small percentages, many of them under 1%. Of course, Uncle Road is almost 7% in the morning going towards the high school, middle school direction, if you will. So there's an increase in traffic. Some residents may compare Uncle Road to Mill Plain Road and talk about the traffic congestion that I think we're experiencing on Mill Plain Road. Just for reference purposes, if you look at the volume of Uncle Road, 500 to 600 vehicles during a peak hour, Mill Plain Road has 1,100 to 1,400 vehicles during the same peak hours. So it's a completely different volume on a two-lane road. And so there's really I'm just mentioning that there's no comparison. And I just wanted
Can I stop you there, ask one quick question, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
but you would acknowledge, though, that Mill Plain Road, for example, does not have multiple schools on it. While there's about 60% of the volume at Umpqua, or 55% of the volume at Umpqua, Tomlinson Middle School, Ludlow Middle School, and Ludlow High School are primarily serviced by Umpqua Road.
Yes,
not Mill
but
Plain.
I can't agree because I don't have the answer on the percentage of traffic on Umpqua Road related to the schools.
No, but I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
that in terms of, as we look at, you're looking at what point does the road system fail? When does it reach?
Well,
It reaches failure. But undue traffic congestion, I don't believe is a scientific term. It's not a term of engineering. Undue traffic congestion is the judgment of the commission. But it is worth noting, though, that
Yeah.
while you're comparing these two roadways that are, kind of encircling, in a sense, that area, primarily, those three schools are served, those two middle schools and a high school, are served by Umpqua Road.
Almost, yes.
Yes. Yeah,
Because
admittedly, there are...
there's a driveway out
But-
to Mill
but
Plain Road.
let's amend that. You acknowledge
Yeah.
primarily service.
Yes, and you are correct. I was only providing that comparison because I saw some correspondence and just wanted to bring it up.
Right, no, my thought was just, and I don't mean to be argumentative,
No.
it's just that the nature of the roads in terms of what they service is different.
Yeah, plus Mill Plain Road has an interchange on it, serving 95, so it's a very different road. And I'm not comparing it, I'm just providing some information, because it's come up in some correspondence that I've seen. Chris, next slide. This one I don't expect anyone to see, but it's table 6 in the traffic report, and I'm just going to give you an overview of what it says. As you know, we do capacity analyses. We use something called sim traffic, which is a modeling of traffic on the roads, and it's actually a visual representation of traffic congestion or traffic volumes on intersections and roadways. And Connecticut DOT is actually accepting this process to determine impact and mitigation. So if we have a road that has congestion and shows traffic backing up, and we make a recommendation for an improvement, add a lane, or a turn lane, or put a traffic signal in, and we do a model before and after with this visual, it'll show you that traffic is moving freer or with less congestion, and it's a basis for determining a mitigation plan. And it's not that simple. It's a whole computer model, fortunately. It's called Synchro, but we use that in evaluating traffic conditions on roads, and it's different calculations and models for a stop sign control versus a signalized intersection, yield sign, roundabouts, and so on. This table, what it says in lots of numbers and charts and letters and so on is, and I wanted to make this statement actually at the beginning, and I didn't. You know, we're preparing a traffic study for a proposed development, in this case a residential development, 118 units. There's an impact, we know that. I probably wouldn't be here if there was no impact. I might be home, or actually might be in a different town at the moment, but the whole purpose of this modeling is to determine what that impact is, and is there a need for mitigation. Now, there are projects that do not need mitigation, and there are projects that don't need or do need mitigation. It depends on the project. And as you know, right here in town, I've been here with projects that have a lot of mitigation and projects that have no mitigation. In this case, there's no mitigation because we don't have what I would consider a significant impact on roads. But the greatest impact is, and what shouldn't be any surprise, the Umpqua Road southbound approach in the morning, leaving the site, going towards the Post Road intersection. We have an increase in delay from 29 vehicles. We have an increase in delay of 14 seconds on that approach. Overall, the intersection continues to operate as it does. You're not going to really see much of a change, but that's where you see the change. It stays the same level of service, but the increase in delay is about, I think it's 14.9% seconds. But that's the increase, that's the impact of this development. And I don't mean to summarize it as being such a simple thing, but that's really where it shows up. And, the next step is, do we do something? Do we not do anything? And the answer is we're not doing anything, and there's a reason for that. The traffic signals on the Post Road are what's called, I think it's a closed-loop system, but the intersections are operating together. And you may recall, and I'm not going to mention the project, but we changed all the traffic signals on Post Road several years ago in conjunction with the state, with another major generator on the Post Road. And we made those modifications. Those traffic signals, in very simple terms, have a range of green and red time. So the green and red time changes based on the volume of traffic. and it's called a minimum green and a maximum green. So there's really no need for us to make a change to the traffic signal. Now, we'll be going to DOT as the next step if we're successful here, and they might say, change the green time, increase the maximum. I don't think they will, because their first interest is moving traffic on the post road. Yes, sir. I see two
Cover the next slide about what the build would be, or are you just talking to that?
I'm referring to this table at the moment.
On
The next one is probably the other,
the build.
that's the other half of the table, actually, the remaining
Are
part.
you going to show that today or no?
I think it's there.
You know you're not going to get past table 6 without any questions. Okay.
I just wonder if you can actually show it.
No, this table is really what, go to the next one, Chris.
This is existing and no build.
Yeah, there's another part,
Project impact.
see if you can switch to, there it is, there it is. I was actually referring to this part of the table.
Yeah. That's,
Thank you.
right.
This is the part of the table where I identify the 14, it's 14.1 seconds. If you go down in the weekday morning column, it says project delay in seconds, right there. That's the southbound approach on Uncle Road during the morning peak hour, and that's the increase or the impact from this proposed residential development.
Any question?
Sorry, ask a couple questions.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So, I mean, the question of, the impact, the need for mitigation, or whether it's significant or not, you're the traffic expert, but just looking at this, I mean, there is an impact in both level of service and delay.
Yes.
Right, and I'm always more focused on delay, because I know level of service, if something is 19.9 now and it's just 0.2, it actually pushes it from a B to C.
Yes.
And it's really not, I think that's what happened in one
Yeah.
of these, you have a delay of 1.7, but it actually pushes it from B to C.
This is right at the edge. Right at the edge.
I'm concerned about the ones with 14 and 9 seconds. That seems to be a fairly sizable increase.
Yes, but keep in mind, if I may, it's level service B to C on that particular movement, which is the Uncle Road, I think that's the through movement, the through and left turn movement, because the right turn only lane, if you will, by the restaurant and the theater, it's two-lane approach. So we analyze the through left, which is one lane, and then the right only going towards Reef Road in that direction. The reason why I'm not concerned with that delay is because it's a B to a C. If I was going from a D, just like in school, D to an E or F, which is long traffic delay, we used to call it failure, that's more, in my mind, that's more of a significant impact that we need to mitigate. But because it's B to C, state and us traffic engineers don't consider that a change that needs to be mitigated. But as you get lower in the levels of service, A, B, C, A is great, just like in school, F is you're in trouble when you go home. As you go down that scale, and you get closer to the E and F, E is theoretical capacity, there's no E in school, but F is so-called congestion or failure, then there's a need for mitigation. So because it's still in that middle range of A to F, even though there's an increase in delay of 14.1 seconds, I'm not rushing to make a recommendation to make a change in the green time. Because keep in mind, if I may, if I change the green time on the Uncle Road southbound approach, it affects all the approaches on Uncle Place, Uncle Road, Old Post Road, and potentially at Reef Road. So it's somewhat of a balancing act between three signalized intersections that, as you know, are very close. And I have a good idea what the state would say, and they would probably say, keep it as is. Okay? And did I answer your question?
You did, but then, whether it was on the previous chart you showed, like the increase, where you said that some numbers were small, but there were some that were 8 or 9%. That's a one project.
Seconds.
impacting it.
Seconds.
No, that was a percent increase.
43 to 505,
Yeah.
59 to 665. There were 8.3 and 8.
Yeah, it was a percent increase, the one you said you do for the chairman.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, yes, that table, yes.
That table. So
yes.
that table you just showed us too. To me, just, that seems significant, meaning one project impacting an intersection, by 8%.
Yep.
It just seems like a lot. And that's, it may be overall, and I know you look at other projects, and I applaud you looking at the other bills. And as I think you told Commissioner Kennelly before, you only look at one project at a time and its impact.
Well, he said that. I just happen to agree with him tonight.
Oh, he said,
No, but if I may,
and I know this is not within your scope, but if there's an area of our town or any town that has a series of developments, all individual projects, all standing on their own merits, and one adds 5%, one adds 8%, one adds 9%. Is it possible that the accumulation of such delays might be deteriorating the level of service and the amount of traffic congestion in the town?
It could,
And
and-
it's not your job to look at
No.
that overall, but...
But keep in mind, if there are other projects coming in and your percentages or delays are increasing, at some point you have to start mitigating, and you may not be able to mitigate. You know, and mitigation here is remove parking on the street. You and I know that that will never happen.
Yeah.
Okay? But going back to table 4, I think it was table 4, table 5, which is the percent increases, I can tell you in traffic engineering, we do not use that table because the percent increase, it doesn't mean anything. It's this analysis that really tells us the story. And I probably have used this reference before. If I have 5 cars and I add another 5 cars, I've doubled the traffic. But is there a capacity problem with 10 cars? Probably not. So that's why we don't use it, and in our guidelines, we don't use percent increases for measuring traffic impact. There's a reason why we don't do that, because it's very misleading.
I could see where it would be, but we're not
Yeah.
dealing with small numbers here. So,
No.
you know,
I'm
I
just
know
giving you an
it's,
example.
you know,
It's easy for me to add in my head.
It's still small, but here we're starting out large and it's
Yeah,
getting larger.
yeah.
Okay,
You're done?
thank you. Yep.
Commissioner Canoli, did you have a question?
I did. Oh, no.
Commissioner,
Yes, sir.
So then,
There you go.
So then on the northbound, which is the row right above you were just discussing? Is
Yes.
that correct? That says no, so no impact.
Yes.
You're gonna have like, what was it, 15 cars, I think, take that left turn? Remember what the number?
I'd have to check the numbers, but
I think it was
the
something like that.
northbound, in this case, is the old post road by the library approach.
Oh, I thought this was turning out of the site. This isn't turning.
No, this,
Misunderstood.
that's okay. No, that's fine. This is the Post Road, Uncle Road, Old Post Road intersection by the
Ah,
Community Theater and the library, those corners, where the traffic signal is.
I got you.
The last column on that, the last set of lines is the driveway itself, the very, very bottom. And what that says is that the driveway operates with little or no delay.
Mr. Gallant, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
In the morning, we're expecting a delay of, what did we say, 14 seconds?
On the southbound through left
Southbound.
movement, yes.
Going eastbound on Post Road, is that what we're expecting?
Yes.
Okay. How
Yes.
come we're not seeing an increase in the peak hours in the afternoon returning?
In the morning, more residents are leaving the
No, I'm
site
saying in the
itself.
afternoon.
In the afternoon, we have less traffic on the southbound approach on Uncle Road at the Post Road.
All right, let me rephrase that. How come we're not seeing an increase in the delay heading eastbound on the Post Road, making a left onto that?
The increase in site traffic is a very small piece of the total 1,500 vehicles on the Post Road. That's a two-way volume. But keep in mind, in the afternoon, the volume going eastbound on the Post Road is probably heavier than going westbound. In the morning, it's heavier going westbound towards Westport. But that's why it's a very small volume on top of a very large volume. The volume on Uncle Road is a much lower volume
So
when
you're not
compared to Post Road.
seeing
So you don't see the
a-
same change.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
You don't expect any difference of backup on the Post Road in the mornings and the afternoon peak hours?
That's correct. It's really, and as I mentioned, it's the Uncle Road southbound approach during the morning peak hour, which is when residents are leaving, which makes sense
Mhm.
as far as, where the impact is. Yeah.
Commissioner Canelli, you have a question?
I think it was,
Right, so,
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
this chart's different than the one that's in the book. It looks like it's cut and pasted, and
Yes,
there's
it
two
is.
columns missing.
That's cut and pasted on the screen.
Yeah, so
doesn't-
when I look at the one that's in our book, I see that in that for eastbound in the first lanes, there's actually an improvement between existing conditions and 2020 no build. Is that correct?
Yeah, believe it or not, it is correct. And it happens with the computer model. As you change the dynamics of the volume on the approaches, you actually sometimes get an improvement on another approach as the volume comparison changes.
But this is in a no build condition. It doesn't have anything to do with this.
It has nothing to do with the site traffic, but between an existing condition and a no-build condition, there are 4 things going on with the no-build. 3 other projects and whatever traffic might be added to that intersection, and a growth rate.
All right,
That's the reason,
thank you.
okay?
Any other questions? Good. Anything else? You got another one?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
just,
For the record, There is no definition in your work for the more fungible term of undue traffic congestion. There are certain levels in terms of what is safe and what is possible to be dealt with on the road system. But there's when we have to make that decision, undue traffic congestion in order to change our regulations, we have to take into account a whole host of things. But there isn't in other words, there's nothing in the regs that says if traffic only drops to a level of, say, C delay, that is due. But D or F or E or F is undue, right? In other words, there's no term in your methodology that undue traffic has like that, right?
Well, we deal with levels of service.
Right.
A, B, C is, no delay to C is average delay. D is longer delay but still acceptable. Right. E, F is
But
unacceptable.
undue traffic congestion, as must be defined in the change reg, is not a term of the science of the work you do.
No, in your regulations in your town, Fairfield, there isn't something in the book that says if you have a level of service C or below,
I'm saying, in other words, we don't have to peg that to a particular number or letter. It's ultimately a judgment call in that situation. It's different than, say, when we have to look at a site in our administrative capacity on a, if you bring us sight lines and those sight lines are correct, that's scientific evidence, and we have to abide by that. That's you're saying if you say 450 each way and we only need 280, we can't argue if it's been certified by our engineer. But the term of art, undue, is a different.
Well, keep in mind this modeling, the synchro model, the SimTraffic model. It's a procedure that I didn't develop. It's developed by the federal government actually, and every state follows it. Mm-hmm. The town of Fairfield, every town follows it in Connecticut and other states. We do work in Connecticut and New York, and they all follow this. And Connecticut conduct certainly follows this, and this is what we have to use. This determines the impact and if there's a need for mitigation. Okay?
Thank you.
And just, I think I'm basically finished, except that, this location from a traffic perspective is, yes, it's near a train station. Yes, it's near the center of town. Hopefully residents do walk. But, we're assuming people are driving. We only took a 15%, I'll call it a credit, for someone hopefully walking to the train station and go to Stanford or New York City or New Haven, whatever it might be. The state, of course, is trying to get more trains and more ridership and take hopefully some cars off 95, which would be a challenge. We all understand and appreciate that issue with 95 itself. And, and one thing, I didn't mention the schools, and I think you mentioned the schools. There are 3 schools on Uncle Road. I clearly know that. And we've analyzed all of this. We know what the school hours, the high school starts at 7:30 in the morning. I know the middle school starts 8 or 8:10. We know that. There's that 30-minute window between the school start times in the morning. And we were actually involved with that with the town to create that 30-minute window in separation in the morning and the afternoon to minimize traffic. The volume shows some slight peaks in there. So we're not forgetting the schools, and someone might stand up and say, well, you didn't account for the schools. And you said it best. The purpose of this traffic study is what is the impact of this residential development on the roads?
This one
development.
which is predicated on a change
Assumption
in
that
our
something
zoning
else
for a
happens.
larger district.
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Correct.
Since you brought, Mr. Chairman, if you just indulge me, since you mentioned the schools, one thing I wondered about, there's often overlap when I had 3 students who went to Tomlinson Middle School, who've all now finished. But one of the things that was sometimes frustrating is that there was an overlap from the commuter exiting of the traffic in the afternoon and evening period, while I had to do things like pick kids up for cross country,
Like
when I had to go
after-school activities?
when I had to go to drop them early for band, when they'd have a concert or orchestra or choir, when there were holiday concerts, things like that. I assume because, I don't know, is there a way to measure kind of that? Because I assume also there's issues up at Ludlow at high school and middle school as well, where there is this sort of intermixing of that traffic. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's not every day because there are seasons when there's no sports teams or there's no events. But I don't suppose you can capture that.
Well,
those situations, you have to look at what's typical. Is that correct?
The schools and the town schools, as far as the start-up time, your arrival in the morning, the start of the classes, and dismissal at the end of the day, all those schools, there's a lot of control over that. And you know that,
Start time of the day.
Yeah.
There could be more extracurricular activity.
That's-
It can go from 4 o'clock until, 8 or 9 when it's raining.
Yeah,
But
but-
that can't be captured in the data because it isn't something that's happening typically.
right, and Tuesday could be very different than Wednesday,
Right.
for example.
Exactly.
It's very difficult, it's very difficult.
On a percentage basis, you can't capture.
It's very, I mean, you can do counts for a week straight, and it's going to be different every day. And what everyone focuses on is the start-up time for classes, dismissal in the afternoon, a separation between the high school and the middle school on the same campus, and all the driveways serving that campus. And that's why Mill Plain Road was such an important aspect of that campus improvement years ago. And in Thomaston, in front of the school, there were all sorts of improvements to have a drop-off pickup several years ago. We did that with the town. And, with school traffic, it's not about moving traffic and moving it faster. It's more about safety.
Yes, I agree.
And that's-
A lot of children going across there.
Yeah.
Sometimes parents are parking in the
Train station,
lot
yeah.
While there's still a lot of commuter cars there.
Yeah, so that, when we look at schools, and I've done hundreds of schools, we focus on not moving the traffic faster. We want to move it efficiently, but we want it to be safe. But ultimately, as you point out, the areas that you can capture when it comes to these 3 schools is the dismissal time and the arrival times. Those are tightly controlled, they fit into your data, but these other times, they can't be because they vary, and that's reasonable. But Correct. that's something I guess the commission also has to consider. Thanks. Sure. And if one last point, then I'll be finished, and I would say answer questions, but I think I've answered the questions so far. Sight lines at the driveway, we always talk about sight distances. Very generally, there's well over 500 feet in each direction, so we certainly meet the criteria for sight lines. The posted out there is 25, and the speed was, I should not forget, but it was over 25, of course, but we meet the sight line criteria that is from CONDOT, from Connecticut DOT. So as far as a driveway, sight lines, safety, we'll have a sidewalk along our driveway, or along our frontage, we'll have an apron for that driveway, we have sight triangles, we have sight lines, and, there's a concern with pedestrians or students walking in front of the site. We've paid attention to that very clearly.
Michael, if you could also add what's important, that emergency vehicles, I don't know if this is you or Joe, but we went through this analysis, and a lot of the design was driven by the fire department, making sure that you don't have to cross any lanes to get in there, that they have the circulation, all the fire trucks to get to where they are. Health, safety, with regard to this site plan, was essential. And Michael, you can just state it for the record. I tend to try to be an expert in everything, but let Michael put it on there for the record.
Just to repeat, the site design, which was conducted by others on the team, but I was certainly involved, accommodates delivery trucks, FedEx truck, for example, emergency vehicles. The driveway apron, the radii is to accommodate the truck turning in without going over the center line on Umpqua Road, for example. Same thing on the driveway, and the stop bar is center line on the driveway itself, whether it's painted or not. There's an imaginary center of that road. The turnaround, if you will, the back of the site itself for the fire truck or FedEx truck to turn around and come back out. There's no such thing as a truck backing out. So that was very carefully part of the planning and design of the site itself.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Galante.
Okay, thank you.
Attorney Rizzo? Just summation?
From a practical standpoint, I'll tell you, I live right on and use those intersections all the time, as I live on the Old Post Road, and for every day for the last 12 years I've used that intersection. I can tell you that I've never once sat through a light on the Old Post Road and Post Road making a right or making a left. We've taken children to school for years going across and have never experienced the same issue. I will tell you, maybe having lived on this road for the last 12 years and used this intersection daily, I think I can maybe count on the time of one hand that I've ever had to wait at a light, through a light, to make a left or right hand turn, either coming north or southbound. Never actually going northbound. Southbound only if some knucklehead has gone across the post road and tied up traffic, which is really what a lot of times happens, especially in the morning. When you live in the neighborhood, you understand, because I can look out my door and tell you when there's a problem on 95, because it's the traffic from 95. It's that ties up our post road in the morning, and believe it or not, ties up the old post road. It goes 95, post road, old post road, and that becomes a circulation. It's not the project from here that causes the problems at that intersection. It's the problems on the highway, and I don't think this project will exacerbate that at all. Frankly, in talking with Andy Montelli, our developer here, and I think Michael would agree, the 15% credit is very light, given the project, given its design, given its closeness to the train station, in the fact that anybody who leases here, in effect, has a parking permit for the train station included in their rent. And we believe that is one of the major attractions for people coming to this site. Well, that concludes all of our expert testimony. I don't know if there's any, before I go into a summation, I don't know if there's anybody that you would like me to call up or discuss some issues.
No, you have the floor. I know there are some questions. Commissioner Kelly, I ask you this before you do your
Thanks very much.
summation.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So, Mr. Rizio, thank you for the presentation, professionally presented, and I very much appreciate that. I may have a question at the end that may be necessary for an expert, but I did have these questions that I think are broadly ones I can ask you. If not, feel free, consult. My first question is because I was discussing this with Mr. Galante, and because I've seen we've gotten a bunch of emails from concerned citizens and all, and there seems to be a lot of confusion about what the regulations are and what will enable this, and can't we split the difference? Can't we have a building that's 50 units or 40 units or 60 units? Why does it have to be 118? Things like that. So what I want to walk through with you is this. So just going to ask you a couple questions. Just for the record, hopefully the folks here are also opinion leaders and they'll help their neighbors understand this. So they will send us emails that are informed by the actual regulations as opposed to misinformation about that regulation, or maybe they weren't clear. I understand not everybody loves regulations like we do. That's why we're on the commission. So let's begin. You're the applicant that you represent in this zone, in this zoning district, with 3 acres of property.
3.219.
3.21 acres of property.
Mm-hmm.
Without us supporting the proposed transit-oriented development district, is it correct that the total number of units, if you were to come to us without that, Todd, the most that could be built for multifamily here, not with senior, I'll get to that, but just for multifamily, would be about 20 units on
22 units to be
22
precise.
units. So without a transit-oriented district overlay created here, which will impact far other properties, more land than this, the limit is 22.
Correct.
Now, if you were, I know that you've spoken and you've communicated to neighbors and others.
We've spent
a great deal of time.
I will tell you that.
And you've said to us that this project might well be better for the neighborhood than possible alternatives. So I'd like to go over 2 possible alternatives, if I could.
Sure.
As we try to figure out how can we satisfy the desires of your client and also the neighborhood and the larger town.
I think you'll find out as you get through the night that we've spent the last 6 months starting with one project. We didn't do. Look.
Oh, sure.
Let me go.
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
The project was purchased about a year ago.
Right.
We, within a very short period of time, did a yield analysis of the property. We had other people. There were 6, 8 bidders of the property, all developers for much higher density type zoning than would be driven by any regulation that you could possibly propose. We thought this was a unique opportunity to bring a unique project that really fit the project, was consistent with the master plan, and did something we could be proud of. We immediately contacted our neighbors. I think you'll hear from our adjoining neighbors, and we spent a good 6 months revising plans, altering plans, reducing heights, landscaping buffers, redesign of projects, redrainage of projects to address other neighbors, so that we didn't come before you and say, hey, we want 160 units, but we really want 118, but give us 160, we'll compromise. We're not into that game. We came in with a project that we could stand here proud of, with a project that we believe is an opportunity for this commission, and we created it through a consensus built through working with our neighbors. And that's how we came to the 118, and that's how we came to the 3 floors.
And I appreciate
And that's
that.
how we came to the setbacks and the landscaping that you see before you tonight.
Okay.
We did a lot of the work that most developers do in front of you. over the 6 months prior to filing our application because we didn't want this to be a three-ring circus. We could have had, if we came in with our original application, you would have had 130 people from Mosswood here. You would have the entire Ludlow Road project back here. You would have had everybody from Audubon Village here, and we would have ripped everything up and started over again. Although this application has taken probably a lot longer than normal, it would have been hit before you 3 times to get where we got today. So,
Okay, I appreciate that. Just in the name of time, because I
Sure.
tend to ask a lot of questions.
Yep.
Okay, so
you want to know we can
right
sit on the
now,
project?
22 units
Yes.
is what you can build
Correct.
without a TODD.
Correct.
That would impact additional areas.
Correct.
Up to 30 acres that are not
Correct.
already kind of, this is the last 3-acre site actually right now.
Correct.
So you have mentioned to those neighbors as you've reached out to them, and I know that because I've been getting emails from various ones that have been distributed to us, of what are possible, the term, what are the alternatives to this? Now, you mentioned that 118 units was what you viewed was the sensible number here on Encore Road. Obviously, our zoning regulations as currently constituted think 22 on that would be appropriate.
Correct. And you
I just
no
wanna
units
get
on
those
Commerce
alternatives.
Drive and
I hear you,
not
but I'm
not
just saying,
50
right
bedrooms
now,
to the
the
acre in
current
Beaumont Street.
the current regulations, just so we have some clarity, you've had an opportunity to talk to
I
the
understand the
neighbors.
clarity.
Okay, so 22. Now, if you were to do for example, a senior development there,
Yep.
you would get a bonus, a density bonus of 50% of what you'd be allowed to do there.
Okay.
So were the commission, for example, to perhaps sensibly, reject the idea of the TODD at Fairfield Fairfield train station, then you could still come back. You could present
We
an
wouldn't come do
application
that.
that could have, say, 35 units or 34 units,
Mhm.
but it would be a senior development.
Yep.
A very different kind of
It's not
development.
an option.
So it's not an option
Correct.
for your client. Okay,
Exactly.
that's not an alternative.
Correct.
Now, what I'm getting in a lot of the emails I'm seeing from neighbors is this. They're saying, you better approve this project, because what we've heard is that it's likely that the next application then would be an 830G application. And I will just tell you that we hear this it's not unusual for this to be raised, because right now Fairfield only has a very limited amount of deed-restricted affordable housing. We're under the 10% limit, the 10% requirement. So that's a legitimate thing to raise.
Correct.
But what doesn't seem to be clear in a lot of these emails I'm getting from what seem to be very successful citizens, because they have homes much larger than mine, and I imagine that reflects a high level of understanding, is they seem to, some of them at least, are urging us to approve this project so they don't get an 830G. What they don't seem to understand is that whether you bought us 250 units, 160 units, 118, 75, 40, anything above a 22-unit building that isn't a senior building, which would only be 35 and isn't an option, would require a TODD. That's correct. Ultimately, if you can't get your TODD passed, you can't build on this site and it not be an 830.
I think it's pretty clear, yeah.
Right. So the choice ultimately for the commission, in your view, is, I would think, is we either have to okay this TODD and the potential impact throughout the neighborhood, or we do risk the chance that you may, or the applicant may come back in the future and present us with a larger development on this site that would provide affordable housing. Now, in the 118 units that are proposed, you're providing 12 units as the statute, as our regulations require.
Correct.
So to get to the percentage of affordable that we would need in terms of just the affordability, not the total number of units, we'd have to triple that. That would have to go to 30%. Instead of it being 10% of
Sure.
118, we'd need 30% of the total units.
Right. It's what drives the
Right,
density of it.
exactly.
Good
So
point.
here's my question to you as we try to figure out how we can have a constructive dialogue with you and those folks involved that you're representing. In many cases, we have affordable housing plans put before us in which the market rate component is relatively inexpensive. In other words, the rents or the purchase prices may not be as high. But one of the things that you mentioned in the course of this presentation is that this project will be very high end. It's going to be, equivalent to projects we see in Boston and other places like that. So my question to you is,
I think that's a good thing.
I'm saying, but you were talking about, well, wherever, Norwalk, I mean, the point is in nice neighborhoods, this is in your presentation that way. So my question to you would be, with such a high-end development like this, is it possible that if you had to come back, and the only way you could get this approved without a TODD impacting this entire neighborhood might be 830G, but the question would be is, because these units are so much higher end, lofts and all the rest, that maybe you don't quite have to have as many units to absorb the impact of 36 affordable housing units versus 12. So, in other words, you don't need a 250-unit building to make that 36 work. Is that possible? Is that something you don't think so, or no?
Let me explain to you, because I think we're getting off base. I would fairly comfortable that any of the other proposed purchasers, other than the people who purchased the property, you would have seen an 830G before you, probably much quicker without the input of the neighborhood and everybody else to get to the plan that we got to today. I will tell you that the property can yield safely. We've talked to traffic. We've had 5 to 6 interested purchasers of the property. If we get tired of doing what we're doing and come forth and come in immediately with a project that can come between 160 and 200 units on the exact same footprint that's been approved by wetlands, that has all the drainage that's approved, that's everything that's gone through the state, that through town and through code compliance operated safely. We don't want to go there. I think this commission has a unique opportunity. The neighborhood looks at this as a unique opportunity to put a first-class, probably the nicest apartment development in the town in an area which your master plan says this is what we like. I think putting 22 units there, we've talked economic development. We'll talk about people who support this application. You'll see a letter from economic development in the project. And frankly, most of the people thought that 22 townhouses would be a waste of this property, considering what you're looking forward into your master plan, that the revenue that can be generated from here, which is upwards of possibly $400,000. I know it doesn't mean anything to you, but your master plan does talk about driving an economy, driving a budget, and with no services and no children that are going to go to your schools. So when you looked at all this, we said, what's the right project for it? I'll walk to this. Dr. Russo lives in town for 50 years. We have relatives that all work in town. What's something we can be proud of? And what's a great opportunity that this town could take advantage of, especially because all you've heard is the housing stock doesn't support the workforce here. We're losing companies because we can't attract young people to live here. I have a son who makes what would be an affordable amount that now will have a community to live in. Because you know why kids don't want to live here? They're in their 20s and early 30s because there's not a community that's built that they can live. We have a beautiful downtown. I have a petition that I'll hand in today signed by about 40 merchants from downtown, hoping that this thing gets approved. Everywhere I talk, I can tell you how many people stop me and say, where can we get on a list? I have a parent that wants to live in town. I have children that want to come back, but it's not cool to go live in a 2-family. It's not cool to go live in an older condo complex. They want something that has a gym, that they can take care of Fairfield Theater Company, that they can go to these restaurants, that if they want to go out in Stamford, they can walk to the train station and go. My kids live downtown. They walked to the train station and went out in Norwalk at night. They went out in Stamford at night. People want that type of environment. You're explaining to me how we get here. Okay. So when we looked at what this property would yield, we decided to go about this and give it a shot to go the right way, speak with our neighbors, come up with a productive project, reduce our height, increase our buffers, and come. Oh, I know I'm just talking.
Listen,
but you're asking me how we got
You
it.
keep talking, I'm listening.
Yeah, and you'll sum up and you'll do that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I just have 2 additional questions. One is related to the structure.
Yep.
That's the current Knights of Columbus
Correct.
structure. I visited the site, and I saw that it's spray-painted in orange, demo on the outside.
Correct.
I don't think there's been there hasn't been a notice or anything yet. Could you tell me a little bit about the structure itself? Is it, and I don't know if staff knows this, whether or not the structure is under any kind of a demolition delay because of the historic nature of the structure?
It's been under a demolition delay because we have not wanted to cause any more aggravation to the neighborhood as possible. We'd like to get it down as soon as possible so we can start construction. What we've done is let both the fire department, the police department, and everybody else to use the building for training. So right now, it's become a hazard, and we want to get it down. But we're waiting until we figure out what's going on with the project.
No, so there is, so in other words, the structure itself.
The demo has gone through all...
The demo
permit
permitting is in?
Has been filed, has been signed off by almost all the departments, if not all the departments.
So this isn't a structure that, because of its age or something like that,
No.
might have
You want to go in it?
historic value. I was
You
next
don't think
to
you'd
it.
want to preserve it?
All right, that's right.
Okay, that's great. So the last question for you is simply this. When I was in the back of the building, and this may be where your engineer can help me, I'm trying to understand how much of the forest area, like if you go up the hill and past the building, and then you're in a little back parking lot on the existing structure, then there's grassy area, and then there's the forest. And I walked into the forest, I was all the way pretty deep. I was way deep in the forest where I found like an orange and white.
That's
pole.
right, I put that there.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then, good, you can answer.
For my neighborhood tour.
There you go.
But I'm not the surveyor, but I'll give a shot with it.
So I guess what I'm asking is I was all the way back there,
Yeah.
a good, huge chunk of the way into the forest.
Correct.
Is that where your turnaround is? What is that there?
Well,
And how much of that forest
Keep in
is
mind
disappearing?
when you talk about the forest, we're going to spend weeks cleaning the forest out of the mess that's been dumped back there. We are going to preserve whatever trees, and we're going to landscape wherever we can. And Frank, a lot of the neighbors have asked us on both property lines to take down a lot of the dead trees that are in between the properties. When you say it's a forest, yeah, there's, and maybe Eric, who's walked the property, is already here. And this leads to Commissioner Alessi, because you gave some great questions last meeting, which led to us to put this diagram in front of you. Chris, if you can take care of it. And that's talking about the structure, talking about the size, talking about the location, and talking about how it relates to the properties next to it. Commissioner, you were very concerned, Alessi, about the length of the building. The length of the building of the Uncler Road, Audubon Village property is about 505 feet long, okay? Our building is 578 feet long. The property is unique, both the Audubon Village property and our property are unique because they have relatively, they're not a square. They are very rectangular, they have a little bit of frontage, and they go deep. So the only way to develop the site is basically to get 24-foot wide driveway aisles, to get setbacks, to get safety turning, to get the appropriate parking, is to load the building to one side. Did we choose a side, Audubon Village versus Mosswood, because we liked one of the groups better than the other? No. It was all driven by the sight lines, Mr. Galante's work, and Mr. Pereira's work. That led to a driveway here. If we were to put the 22 units on this property, Commissioner Alessi was very concerned about the length of the building. And remember, Audubon Village is 3 stories. We're 3 stories. It's all brick along the side. We would have a building doing the same layout that would be 693 feet long. That's 31 and a half feet wide units times 22 units, and brings it to a 693-foot long building. Because of the efficiencies of our construction, because of the ability, which I can tell you why also this is an amenity, there was no surface parking but for visitors. We have 152-car parking garage under the building. When you go to a lot of the other projects, what you see is a surface parking, you see a landscape, you see no landscape, and that's not what you see here. So this building, if we took the 22 units, to put 22 units in there, we could end up with 35 feet, 40 feet, 693 feet long along that diagram. Now, when you talk about and lead to where are we in relation to our neighbors? We don't abut a single-family district. Mosswood owns that property that is between us and the Ludlow Road property. Now, if you went there, you will notice that one of the Mosswood buildings backs up to the McKay house, which is, you'll see the 75-foot barrier there. That building, so none of the shrubbery in front of that building gets touched. In fact, our property stops up on a north corner. There was an orange. One of my stakes is in up on that corner, shows our property line, and then there's one down on the lower corner. The balance is all going to be landscape, shrub, and serve as part of our drainage issues. You go up to the roundabout ending. If you walk the property, not at the last Mosswood building, not at the next to last Mosswood building, but you can see the Mosswood building right in front of that one that backs up to the McKay house. The building is even in front of
starts at the third of the way up the third building back from Mosswood from the single-family neighborhood. Our building is 293 feet from the nearest single-family residential property line, a football field. It's 347 feet of building to the closest residence. And we've also, you'll hear this later, negotiated the fact that the property between our property and the single-family residence on Ludlow Road will now be virtue of basically a conservation easement that will not be disturbed. So what we've done with this commission is says in your plan of conservation development, let's not encroach on our single-family neighborhoods. Remember, you designated this as, not you specifically, but the town designated this whole area, Audubon Village, Knights of Columbus, and Mosswood as DRD, designed for multifamily residences. What we've done is we've ensured the future of a conservation easement, that there'll never be any impact on those homes or any growth back toward that single-family neighborhood on Ludlow Road, which is an absolute gem. And not to encourage traffic, but if you get a chance to drive back there and take a look at that circle, it's probably one of the best-kept secrets in town. And in working with the neighbors and the property owners along our border, we are doing the best we can to ensure that that continues to happen. So, if you can see, this property is about as well buttressed and fits in as well as it can without impacting the neighbors, yet keeping the setbacks, keeping the 3 stories which are permitted, keeping the length of a building that abuts Audubon Village is the same length of a building that we're facing. So in other words, they have 16 units, because that's the maximum they could get, and it went 505 feet long, because that's the only way you can lay it out. If we did our 22 units, the only way we could lay it out, which is along the side, we'd end up with a building 693 feet.
Where is the Knights of Columbus building? I was over there the other day.
All right, so Knights of Columbus, you have to look at this, there's an open.
Jim, I want to
Right.
So when you come out,
got a lot of people.
the flat, well, let's go back. Okay, yeah, you know what?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Mr. Rizzio, can I just add one question?
Yes.
I just want to know, like, where, and Mr. Chairman, if you just,
Go ahead.
where else are you going with the thing? Because I just noticed, like, we've been here a night and now another night. There's a lot of people out there that want to talk. Do you have a lot left in your presentation, or are you some?
Okay,
Could
let's
you
just
answer
find
one
out
thing?
what the Knights of Columbus
Just go-
building
yeah,
is.
I was just hoping we could sum up soon so that we can get to the public. I'm just thinking that, you can present whatever you want, don't get me wrong. You
I
can
can
talk till
also say,
11.
I can also save it for rebuttal.
You can only stop when you can stop whenever you want, but you do have time for rebuttal later.
There's a lot of people
I don't
here.
think I've been the
Answer
reason for
rebuttal.
myself going
I don't
on. I've
think
been
so.
answering questions.
I don't think so, but the
Okay.
longer the question, the
You
longer.
might want to ask some of the commissioners to hold on to the
I'm
questions. I think
trying
my
to do it.
presentation would be a lot
Do it.
shorter.
Okay,
Yeah.
why don't you finish some up?
All right.
Okay?
So,
If we have any other questions, we'll do it under rebuttal.
fine.
Okay.
Why don't I sum up on rebuttal? Would I
Whatever
have
you
that
like to
permission
do.
of that? Would that make it a
Whatever
little
you want to
easier?
do. If you want to sum up for rebuttal, it's fine.
I'll sum up
You
the
have the
rebuttal,
floor.
but there's one thing I wanted to make clear, and that is the building where it's situated, the length of the building. I also wanted to make clear a couple other things that Commissioner Alessi brought to our attention, which I had to give, I wanted to make sure that I gave the appropriate thing.
6 seconds, my questions.
We talked about, you know what, let me move to the public, and then I can come back, I'll sum up, I'll answer and address
Okay.
some of the comments that the commission made earlier on.
Okay.
And I'll give a summary.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Yes, you know what, I have to do one last thing.
Go ahead, you did it rather than
I have do it now? I'll do it now. Chris, do you have the affordability plan? There were some comments by Mark Barnhart with regard to the affordability plan. We
think
revised
Mr.
our
Barnhart is here
affordability
tonight.
plan, and I would like to, I don't think you have to wait for me. We are going to submit Chris Russo,
I
we're gonna
believe-
submit
okay.
the affordability plan with a red line to Mr. Wang.
This is a response to his letter.
Correct.
Okay.
Which received,
We got it today, I think.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Rizzio, now is going to be the public comment part of the application. We received a lot of emails, a lot of letters, we have them, they're on the record. So if you have already submitted a letter or an email, or however you got it to town hall, we have it, there's no reason to read it again tonight. So everything we get, we do read, I can assure you that. And we discuss it. So And a lot of your letters were brought up in the questions tonight, especially under the traffic part of the application. So, with that, when you do come up to the mic, I ask that you state your name and your address, and you keep it pertaining to the application, and kind of keep it as brief as you can, because there seems to be a lot of people here tonight. We want to wrap this up tonight. And with our first one, Attorney Leclerc.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, for the record, I'm Brian Leclerc, 188 Henderson Road, Fairfield. I'm a partner in the law firm of Bertram Moses with offices in Westport and Milford, Connecticut. It's my pleasure tonight to represent the Mosswood Condominium Association, Incorporated. It's the condominium association for a community of 136 townhouse condominiums located at 245 Umpqua Road. We are the neighbor immediately adjacent to this site at 333 Umpqua Road to the south, between the train station parking lot and the Knights of Columbus building. When I was on this commission, I always encouraged and I appreciated when an applicant would work with the neighbors, would meet with the neighbors ahead of time before hearings. And that's exactly what happened in this case. I've been involved now for a little over a year representing the Mosswood Condominium Association, and we've had numerous meetings with the developers, with Mr. Montelli, with Attorney Rizzio. We've been out to other projects by this developer in New Haven, spent hours on them, and we've been very involved in meetings. We've looked at plans, we've worked for revised plans, both architectural, site plans, planting plans, materials plans, elevation plans, virtually everything. We've had a great dialogue over the past year working with our new neighbor, the folks that have bought the property next to us. And we've had a number of meetings with the residents. The most recent meeting with the residents of Mosswood was last night. We had over 50 residents there in a final meeting to answer some questions, to show the final version of the plans that we've been working with this developer on over the past 12 months. And I'm pleased to report that the Mosswood Condominium Association is in full support of both of these applications and asks that this commission approve both applications of this developer that are before you this evening for the project as presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the commission, good evening. My name is Bob Lottie, spelled L-O-T-T-Y. I'm a resident of Mosswood. I live at 108, Unit 108, 245 Umpqua Road in Fairfield. Besides being a unit owner, I am a member of the executive board of Mosswood, and I can fully say what Attorney Leclerc has just represented to you is the position of our board. It's my position as a unit owner, personally, irrespective of the board. We have had nothing but support from Mr. Rizzio and his partners in this development. From day one, they've met with us, including Ray Rizzio came last night to the memorial room at the library to talk and answer questions to interested residents. And I think my own perspective from after talking to our residents after that meeting was anybody that was on the fence about this project, I think, turned in support of it. And I can tell you, as far as the board is concerned, we fully support it, and we hope that it's developed just as Mr. Rizzio has presented to you earlier. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is William Burke. I'm also a resident of Mosswood. I've lived there for approximately 20 years. I was on the executive committee. We did meet with Mr. Rizzio. He did wield 830G very effectively as a club. They did beat down a lot of our neighbors at the Mosswood. Most of them had the same reaction that many of you had when you first looked at this project. It's just too big. It's too big for that size property, and it's too big for that location. It's too many units. There's too much traffic. There are 3 schools. This is not Commerce Park Drive. We don't have as many lanes as Commerce Drive, and we have 3 schools. Commerce Drive has none. I would ask that you reduce the number of units in this transit-oriented development to something that we can sustain without having accidents. And I'd also say, as far as the underground parking, that's just going to mean a lot of blasting. That's all ledge. That's bedrock, and it's going to be blasted. A football-sized field 2 football-sized fields up to 10 feet down. It's going to be bad. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Steve Danahy. I live on Paper Mill Lane, which is the first street up Umpqua. It's a residential area, and I've heard a lot of talk this morning about the traffic and about delays and so forth, a little bit about public safety. My concern is about more public safety and the children that live in that neighborhood, because I don't know if you know that Paper Mill Lane is a major cut-through from the highway for people trying to get onto the highway, because at the end of Paper Mill, take a quick right and you're on I-95 headed south, and there's also the people that want to cut through and avoid Post Road and end up cutting through the downtown that way. And right now, there's already traffic on there with little children out there, 40 miles an hour in that area, and adding another 190 vehicles going up and down, cutting through, trying to avoid the downtown area, and then potentially trying to get to I-95 or just using Paper Mill Lane. I think that's something that I wish you would consider, and I didn't see any kind of concern for that in the traffic report that was given a little while ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God, I'm short. My name is Priscilla Scanlon. I live at 164 Ludlow Road. I have a single-family home that it's between the proposed property and that slice, like kind of that pizza-shaped slice of land that Mosswood is. I originally was opposed to the project. However, I met with Mr. Rizzio. I understand the project now, and I am supporting the project. I think it is going to be good for the town. I think we need more rental units, and I do believe people will be using the train rather than driving on the local roads to get to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Terry Donahue. I am also a Mosswood resident, relatively short-termer. I've only been there 5 years. But I've lived in that neighborhood, Umpqua Road, Barlow Road, for 54 years. My first house was on Paper Mill Lane Extension, as it was called back in the day when it was a dead-end street off of Umpqua Road. So I've been on Paper Mill Lane, I've been on Barlow Place, and then I lived on Umpqua Road before I moved to Mosswood. I have a long-term view of what's going on around town. I think I've always been active in the town, and I'd just like to make a point. Before we met at the library last night, I was a little more adamant against this project, but after seeing the details of it, I am not so adamant against the building itself and the location, but I do take issue with this transit-oriented downtown district. The issue that I have is that it is entirely too definite or limited to just this single project. I think if you're going to have a new district to encourage densifying residential areas for downtown, I wouldn't draw an 800-foot circle around the train station, and I wouldn't say it had to be 3 acres minimum, and I can't remember what the other thing was that is specifically designed for this lot. But I would tend to try to make the transit-oriented downtown district a parallel piece of zoning that goes along the edge of the railroad right-of-way. Maybe a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile in each direction, so that additional pieces of property would qualify for this type of a development. If it's good for the single development, it's good for multiple developments. So you could put a similar type thing on Lantern Hill, on Heim Bering, on Exide, you name it, Thorpe Street. So I think that it's up to the town planning and zoning people to define the language for the TODD rather than a developer. And I guess that's my only real issue with what's been going on in the last couple of weeks. I don't like the density, but, you know, it's a very nice building, and I think in the neighborhood it won't be too bad. The traffic, Mr. Galante, I've heard him over the years make presentations, and he's always very scientific. All I know is that about 10% of the population of Fairfield comes to Umpqua Road every morning, between the 3,000 at the high school and the middle schools and the 2,200 commuters. And in that 100 yards between the driveway for 333 Umpqua Road and the train station in the morning, I don't know what the scientific term is, I call it bedlam. You got cars, buses, bicycles, pedestrians, and it's just an accident waiting to happen. But as far as the building, I'd have no complaints. I think that you got to think long and hard about the TODD.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Lalore, and I live at 108 Ludlow Road. I did send you a letter defining my opposition to changing the zoning, and I continue to oppose the zoning change. I'd also like to thank Mr. Kennelly for clarifying so many of the issues about the zoning laws, because it was very confusing and we were getting very conflicting information, and I didn't realize that it was an overlay of a larger area. So I appreciate that, and I would strongly urge you to turn this proposal down. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Kunkel. I am a unit owner at Audubon Village, and obviously when we first heard of the plans to build on the old Knights of Columbus space, obviously we were against it because we didn't really know anything about it. We just figured noise and construction and, new neighbors. Who wants to get along with new neighbors? And then we met with the development team, and they really kind of put into perspective that really anything really could go there, and they've made it very clear that they have put in the extra effort to work with the neighbors and to work with the people that are going to be potentially disrupted by the build-out. And that really goes a long way. Any development company can go in there and, just drop a bunch of Legos onto the asphalt and call that a place to live. And they put a lot of thought into this, to making it aesthetically pleasing, as well as, obviously trying to throw a little bit of revenue back into the town. Their target is, singles, retirees, and millennials. And not that I'm happy about the whole millennial thing. The last thing we need is people wearing scarves in the middle of the summertime. But, I probably should have written something before I'm just shooting from the hip here. But the way I see it is, in case you can't tell, I'm actually in favor of approving both the applications. And really, the biggest silver lining here is I think the extra commuter traffic, and I think with that 15% train commuter number, I think is very, very, very low. I would say most people, especially for a rental, would definitely flock to that area because they're at a major hub. I know I use a train every single day. And because I use a train every day, I actually see this as a good thing to happen, because I think that the increased train traffic is actually going to start to force some improvements for people that walk back and forth to the train station every day. I think it's going to breathe a lot of life into, I think, what has relatively been a very quiet, and I think will still remain a quiet community. And again, I'm for this, and I really hope that everybody votes in the affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Amanda Volpe, and I live at 1058, Amanda Volpe, and I live at 1058 Umpqua Road. And we're very impressed by the plans. They look like a very nice apartment building, and we don't oppose apartment building. At that site, I think it would be an improvement to the site, But my concern is the population density of having that many units in that neighborhood. One of the things that drew me to Umpqua Road, the reason that I moved and bought my house there, is because it has that town feeling. And I think that kind of population density really will take away from the town feeling, and we need to be really mindful about the number of people we're putting in a square footage. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris LaGreca. I live at 178 Ludlow Road. I live next to Priscilla, who spoke earlier, right behind her in that pizza slice shape that she referred it to. Met with Attorney Rizzio. I wrote a letter to you guys as well. He addressed the majority of my concerns, being, number one, the drainage. That area of Ludlow Road has a significant amount of drainage problems, and with the offset going to Umpqua Road, I think that'll certainly help us. And as well as the view, he's promised to put us, enough plantings that it won't be obstructive to us and, hurt our property values. The density sort of is what it is. If that type of thing gets approved, I'd rather see a development like this than something that's going to maximize the absolute, 830G or whatever it is. So with that said, I'm okay with it, and yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Cynthia Pomeroy. I live at 377 Umpqua Road, which is Audubon Village. I'm the president of the executive board, and I'm supportive of this project, and the members of our executive board are also supportive of this project. To echo what everybody else was saying, that Mr. Rizzio and Mr. Montelli have been very helpful to us, educating us on the project, have met with our unit owners, answered questions. We've talked about the buffer between our property and their property. We've talked about landscaping. We're comfortable with what they have been proposing. It is a large project. There's no doubt about it. I do have concerns with, not because of this project, but in general with the traffic down by the train station when school is in session. Something needs to be done with that in general, but I don't think that this project is going to have a major impact, because I do think most of the people are going to walk to the train and they're going to walk downtown. They're not going to be taking their cars out. Mosswood is very dense. I walk to the train station every day. There's 130 units in Mosswood. There's not a lot of cars going in and out of Mosswood. So there's not a lot of cars going in and out of Mosswood. I don't expect a lot of cars to be going in and out of this new project. But it's very well designed. It's going to be attractive. We need rental units in Fairfield, and I'm not opposed to the project.
Thank you. Oh, fuck. It's going to take 20 minutes.
Hi, my name is Linda Edwards, and I live at 399 Umpqua. I have a couple concerns. For number one, the traffic in the morning with the schools coming and going back. You have to cross over the second lane because the people are going into the middle school to pick up their children. So they're blocking both lanes. That's one thing. Number two, I think the project is too big for that area. I know, you've already been there. And the other thing is, I think obviously there's been a lot of promises made, and a lot of this stuff is on assumption. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jan Reber, Beaumont Street. I'd like to follow up with what Mr. Donahue said. I'd like to talk almost exclusively about the text amendment, which I think really needs some significant revision. Also have a letter that Fairfield Senior Advocates had somebody here last time. They couldn't come this time, so they want to submit a letter. So there's a copy here for all of you of that. Also like to thank Mr. Wendt for putting up all the plans online. I think that was a great thing to do. I'm sure that was not easy, but I hope that'll maybe set a precedent for the future, making it easier for us to all see what's going on with this project. I appreciate the opportunity to address the proposed text amendment adding 1018, which seeks to create a downtown transit-oriented district to Section 10 of your regulations. I believe this amendment requires significant revision if it's to be approved at all. Kudos to Attorney Rizzio for initially attempting to convince you to adopt 1018 without reference to his application for 333 Uncle Road. But as you heard, he was unable to talk about 1018 without referencing the Uncle Road application. That's because 1018 is inextricably linked to 333 Uncle Road. It's a text amendment that is a rather egregious example of spot zoning. Recently with Thorpe Street and now with Uncle Road, you've allowed applicants to intermix their presentations and make their own decisions on how to present the text amendment and the underlying application. A text amendment needs to stand on its own with town-wide reference. You're certainly well aware of that. In the case of Thorpe, you approved a far different text amendment than the one that was proposed. The one you approved was based on well-crafted language from your staff and not from the applicant. Perhaps that will happen here, but I urge you to hold separate hearings on text amendments. They really need to be considered in their own right. It's not surprising that applicants seek to have their text amendments and underlying applications considered at the same time. They hope that the momentum of a favorable project will cause you to adopt an otherwise flawed text amendment. That didn't happen with Thorpe, and I hope it doesn't happen here. I would think that an applicant would want to submit a text amendment well in advance of a project application so they're not wasting money on a plan that won't meet your regulations. That doesn't happen because they want the cover of a project application to secure approval of a text amendment. To look specifically at the flaws in this text amendment, 1018.3 says a qualifying property must be at least 3 acres, must be within 800 feet of the train station's southbound entry door. Why such tight geographic restrictions? When the developer spoke, he told you that a transit-oriented district are best located within what I think he called, quote, a golden quarter mile of mass transit and other amenities. A quarter mile is 1,320 feet, which is a distance that's over 50% greater than the text amendment allows. Why use the southbound door as a marker? Riders buy tickets from kiosks on the platform. The station building's unfortunately a relic of an old age. Why southbound only? In addition, the platforms can be accessed from various points, both northbound and southbound. Most commuters don't even go into stations. Why not use the platform as markers? Why does a tide need to be 3 acres? Wouldn't a tide of 2 acres or 1.5 acres or less be just as useful? Are there properties other than 333 Uncle Road that fit the proposed tide, or is this in effect a regulation designed for one property only? I mean, you could engage in an exercise of fiction and talk about tearing down a school or amassing a property by payments to small landowners, but in effect, there's no viable location that meets the strict criteria of this proposed tide other than the one described by the applicant at 333 Uncle Road. If the text amendment specified less acreage and siting within 1,320 or 1,500 feet of any part of the northbound or southbound platforms, locations like Thorpe Street, like the currently empty Mrs. Green's building on the Post Road, perhaps several other locations might qualify. These changes might result in smaller tide construction that would add less concentrated traffic and would involve building sizes that are more compatible with Fairfield's current architectural profile. This might avoid what one of your commissioners saw last time as the danger of a, quote, ring of large developments around the train station. I think this applicant is just trying to prevent any competition by urging the approval of a set of unreasonable geographic restrictions. Think of the difference in the impact of this text amendment if it said, for instance, a tide would be at least 1 acre and not greater than 3 acres, and in proximity to the train station. Your regulation 21.16 for the transportation commercial park specifies, quote, an area adjacent to a railroad passenger station or platform facilities, unquote. It doesn't set an arbitrary specific distance. And note that it mentions platform, not a doorway. In this case, 3 acres results in a dormitory-like building that's longer than 2 football fields. If you really feel we need a tide in downtown, I hope you won't fix it at 3 acres. The best interests of Fairfield's future are not served by letting the size of a piece of property be the defining factor in how the town is developed. In its extensive narrative justifying the creation of the tide, the applicant says, quote, the downtown area of Fairfield is lacking quality rental units to support the commercial development that exists, unquote. It's true. But that focus on feeding the commercial needs of Fairfield Center, and I say feeding because Attorney Rizzio stressed that this property on Uncle Road would help fill Fairfield restaurants on weeknights. has caused this applicant to ignore important considerations about the type of rental housing we need in Fairfield. That's evident when we see that in the proposed 10.18.6, the applicant plans 10% affordable units at what we commonly call 80% of the area median income. That's the minimum required under the existing set-aside regulations, but it's not adequate to meet the rental needs of the downtown area. There's precious little property available for dense residential development near the train station. It's important that such property be used in a way that will provide not just commercial advantage to downtown, but that will serve the wider welfare of Fairfield by meeting its particular housing needs. At the new Trademark apartment complex on Commerce Drive near Metro Center, which has a pool, by the way, all the affordable units were rented very quickly, while the market rate rentals have been very slow so far. It's a good indication of the need for affordable housing in transit-oriented apartments. As onerous as state statute 830G may be, its requirement that affordable housing contains some units at 60% of area median income is logical, and in Fairfield's case, it's critical. 60% of area median income for housing provides an opportunity for households with incomes in the $30,000 to $40,000 range or less, an opportunity to live in downtown Fairfield, an opportunity they might not otherwise have. Seniors on fixed incomes, town employees, young school teachers, paraprofessionals, who might, by the way, want to walk to work at one of the 3 nearby schools, recent college graduates seeking to stay in Fairfield, all those would benefit by having rental units at 60% of area median income. The vast majority of proposed units will be priced at a luxury level, which will be unaffordable to the cohorts I just mentioned. At Trademark, market rate units, which they're having trouble renting apparently, in one bedroom range from $1,950 to $3,000 a month. I hope you will consider modifying 1018.6 to require that 70% of affordable units be at 80% and 30% of affordable units be at 60% of area median income. Please consider a further modification of 1018.6 to require that 15% of available rental units instead of 10% be affordable under the 80-60 formula. I understand, by the way, that the Affordable Housing Committee submitted a letter to you today in which they're calling for 20%. I'm asking for 15%. The opportunity that the town is providing a developer to build a substantial rental complex near downtown should be granted only with concessions that match the housing needs of the town. The need for affordable housing is urgent, especially in light of the difficulties we've had with 830G. 15% affordable housing in a TOD helps meet the town's needs. It aids our efforts to achieve a moratorium that will release us from the grip of 830G. The town will receive valuable bonus housing unit equivalency points for each 60% unit, and that will help in getting the 830G moratorium. A further modification to 1018.6 should be the requirement that 2 units, one of the 80% and one of the 60%, should be ADA compliant for use by disabled persons. We have a serious need for housing that the disabled and elderly need. As you know, the developers for Thorpe Street and Beaumont Street have voluntarily offered to create ADA compliant units, and such units should be required in this transit-oriented development district. The disabled can make particular use of public transportation, such as the Greater Bridgeport Transit Specialized Paratransit door-to-door service from this location. These specified ADA units must be fully ready for move-in by disabled renters without further modification. The current application contains able-bodied amenities such as yoga and spin rooms. I think the balance of 2 ADA-compliant affordable units is especially compelling. The Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988 requires that units in buildings like this one be, quote, adaptable. And I believe the architect told you that they were going to have adaptable units. They have to have walls reinforced for grab bars, etc. But fully accessible units already have those grab bars and are ready for move-in by disabled persons. There was some question about this with Thorpe Street, so I've attached to this my presentation a brief article from Property Management Insider that explains the distinctions between those levels. I believe you got, I won't go into the affordability plan since you got the comments from the Affordable Housing Committee. It's astonishing to see how poorly drafted their affordability plan was. It talked about Westway, it talked about units for sale. I mean, it didn't seem like they had any commitment to being affordable in any way that was meaningful. Couple quick questions. If blasting is planned at 333 Uncle Road, has anybody asked the Audubon Society about the impact blasting might have for them? Fire engine turnaround is always a concern. We know how we went through that with Bronson Road. The code review doesn't seem to address this. Can a fire engine have full access around the entire rental complex at 333 Uncle Road? It didn't look to me like it would. If not, how will rescues be accomplished if there are persons trapped on the upper floor in the rear of the building? That was an issue with Bronson. Finally, I'm almost done. I'd like to address the issue of traffic and parking. In its lengthy narrative, the applicant says that the TOD, quote, will provide needed relief to the high parking demand and relieve pressure on the satellite lots in Plain Road. I don't comprehend how that's possible. In order to cut down on the parking demand and relieve pressure, it would have to mean that people who move into Todd would have to be people that are driving already to the train station. They'd have to then be walking, and wherever they live, people that walk there wouldn't go to the train. It just doesn't make any sense. And keep in mind that this developer summarily added 100 cars a day back into the parking queue by denying them access to 333 Road. So whatever this project will or will not do, it's not going to relieve pressure on satellite lots and on Mill Plain Road. The fact is that we face an increasingly congested traffic and parking situation in this area of Fairfield. My handout includes a rather crudely illustrated map that focuses on the part of downtown where there are 3 schools, a train station, 2 existing condo developments, a forthcoming large condo complex on Thorpe Street, and the looming development of the massive Exide site on Post Road. In the next few years, we're going to be seeing hundreds of additional cars in this compact area, with or without this large building at Umpqua Road. I hope that your commission and staff, in your planning capacity, are working diligently to figure out how development impacts this serious traffic and attendant parking issue. Traffic and parking are becoming a distinct quality of life problem downtown. Anecdotally, it took me 9 minutes to travel from the intersection of the Post Road and Thorpe Street to South Benson Road at 12:15 on a weekday recently. That's about the progress I'd expect to make in a yellow cab in the crush of Midtown Manhattan. The public fervently hopes you're applying your extensive planning skills to this escalating issue and that you consider it when deciding whether or not to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Pamela Iacono. I live at 68 Fife Road. I am also the RTM District 8 representative for this district where this proposal is being presented. In addition, I serve as the moderator of the RTM. I stand before you tonight, and I will acknowledge I'm a novice at TPZ meetings, out many other nights with other things, and it's very confusing to get through your agenda, and I appreciate Commissioner Kennelly pointing out that really what you're looking at are 2 different things. One is the TOD and the other is the application, and because those presentations are commingled, it's very difficult for the public to understand what's really going on. So in speaking directly to the TOD, I would encourage you not to adopt this. This is not how you want to plan out Fairfield's future. This is going to take time. If you want to build a transit-oriented development in downtown Fairfield, please take the time to study how to do it, and don't do it through spot zoning. I have gotten numerous phone calls and messages from many constituents, Mosswood, Ludlow Road, Mill Plain Road, immediate abutting people that live down the road. I'm on Fife off Mill Plain. It took me 15 minutes the other day to get from my house down to Post Road to go to a dentist appointment at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's near right near the Circle. The traffic is out of control in this town, and it needs to be addressed, and spot zoning is not the way to do it. Separately, this application, what the applicant has put together is beautiful. It's a beautiful building. They took the time to meet with the neighbors, to hear their concerns, to meet with them, to understand what they were looking for, and I commend them for that. And that's what we need our developers to do. However, we can't have this type of dense development in such a tiny area. It's too much. And we really need to be studying this as a whole. So I encourage you to please turn down the TOD as it's written this way, study it, and make a good plan for the future of Fairfield. We are really depending on you. We can't get anywhere in town anymore. Walking, driving, riding your bike, it's just dangerous, period. So, thank you on the TOD. I encourage you to rethink it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Vesey Dillis and I live at 896 Mill Plain Road. I would like to strongly oppose the proposed upcoming Knights of Columbus project based on its size. The developer used the 830G affordable housing statute in order to intimidate the Mosswood board to grant them the approval for a high-density project that will ultimately have a very negative effect on the downtown traffic and the character of our beautiful town. A large number of Mosswood residents strongly oppose the Knights of Columbus project. 35 owners so far have signed a petition against the project. I would also like to bring a little bit more clarification to some of the earlier statements that we heard tonight. Unlike what Attorney Leclerc stated earlier, we haven't had any meetings prior to last night when the Mosswood board actually presented their findings and presented some of the details on this particular project. My objection is based on the following concerns: traffic, safety, taxes, preserving the character of our town, and the affordable housing statute. Traffic. Fairfield is already the most densely populated town in the southern Fairfield shoreline. The proposed project is located in one of the busiest spots in Fairfield, right across from the Tomlinson Middle School, which currently enrolls 775 students, and down the street from the Fairfield Ludlow Middle School, 780 students, and down the street from the high school, which in turn has 1,500 students. If that's not bad enough, the proposed building will be located in close proximity to the train station, and it will be surrounded by two existing condominium complexes on either side that have over 150 units combined. I live on Mill Plain Road, and I use Uncle Road every morning to drop off my daughter at the Roger Ludlow Middle School or to get to the downtown area. The traffic in recent years, especially after the construction of the Sportsplex facility, has become unbearable, and given the three other projects, Bronson, Thorpe, and Beaumont, have already been approved, the traffic in the immediate downtown area is going to be extremely high, especially during rush hour. The developer implied during the presentation that in his opinion, the future tenants will mainly use public transportation, and thus the building won't impact the already very congested area next to the train station. I would like to strongly disagree with the statement. I lived at Mosswood condominium in my late 20s and early 30s, and at that point in time, I was of a similar age group to the developer's target market of young professional millennials. I am speaking based on my personal experience and that of other young couples that lived at Mosswood at the time and still currently own a unit there. The majority of the Mosswood residents take the train only if they happen to have a job in New York City. The vast majority of the residents use their cars to commute to their Connecticut jobs, go grocery shopping, take their kids to activities, go to the doctor, the dry cleaners, the beach, and to run various errands. The number of Mosswood residents walking to the downtown area is absolutely minimal and limited mainly to restaurant outings. Safety. My second objection is based on the fact that many middle and high school students walk home from school on the sidewalk that passes in front of Knights of Columbus. During rush hour, drivers coming from Mosswood as well as the train station often get desperate and instead of waiting for the kids to pass, try to speed in front of them. The area where Knights of Columbus will be built is already very unsafe due to a very high level of traffic. The proposed project will make an already very unsafe situation many times worse, and it will put in danger the lives of our young students and bicyclists at a time when we're trying to encourage more kids to walk and bike to school. Transit-oriented district. I find the developer's vision to transform our beautiful historic downtown into a transit-oriented district very disheartening. High-density projects such as the 333 Ankura Road project will ultimately destroy the very reason why many of us move to the suburbs and in particular to Fairfield. I find it very concerning that the developer's aim is to model Fairfield after Stamford, Norwalk, and other high-density towns. Even if we put aside the damage that this project can potentially do to the quiet residential character of our downtown, Fairfield does not have the space to expand the infrastructure in order to accommodate such drastic increase in traffic. Taxes. The developer claims that he will build one-bedroom and two-bedroom units. After listening to the presentation at the last TPZ meeting, it became apparent that some of the units will have a loft area, and thus those apartments will be essentially two- and three-bedroom units. As such, it's very likely that many families will occupy these units. Each unit will at best bring approximately $3,000 in tax revenue to the town. But each child that enters the school system costs approximately $17,000 to educate. Currently, approximately one-third of the Mosswood units are occupied by families with 2+ children. It's reasonable to assume that the same will be the case for Knights of Columbus, since the units will be even more spacious compared to Mosswood. Ultimately, this kind of project won't bring much in tax revenue to the town, and at best might have a marginal increase in tax revenue, not sufficient to increase the pressure on our infrastructure and roads. Further, all 4 new projects are districted to Mill Hill and Riverfield. Mill Hill is operating beyond full capacity, and Riverfield, which was recently renovated, can accommodate only 75 additional students, given an overall capacity of 503 students. Affordable housing law. Lastly, I would like to point out that if we continue to approve high-density projects, it would be nearly impossible for Fairfield to ever reach the 10% affordable housing threshold in order to be able to protect itself against aggressive developers that aim to maximize their profits at the expense of quiet residential neighborhoods. The developer should reconsider the size of the project. A more suitable project for the size of the lot would be for him to build semi-detached townhouses similar to Southport Green. I hope that you will take these concerns into consideration when deciding whether to grant permission to 333 Ankura Road's zoning application. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have the signatures from the Mosswood owners.
And we have that letter already in the record in our emails.
Okay, thanks.
We read it today.
The petition you might want to hand in, though.
Yeah. You said you had a petition? Yeah.
Anybody else like to speak?
He already spoke.
He already spoke.
He already spoke.
Yeah.
There's no rebuttal.
There's no rebuttal.
Oh.
There was just a misrepresentation made about something I said to the commission, which needs to be corrected. It takes 30 seconds, and that is...
Well, let me say, Mr.
Wait, one at a time, please. And let's not address the commission.
And I would just correct something for the record. It was just suggested by this young lady
Quickly,
from Mill
we're
Plain
clear.
Road
We're clear.
that I misrepresented something regarding meetings of the unit owners, and there was only one meeting. That's not correct. What I represented to this commission was accurate. There was a meeting last night. There was an annual meeting when this was noticed and discussed, and there were 4 to 5 other meetings of the association. I just want the record clear that nothing was misrepresented.
I'm sorry. And because I've decided...
Allow the public to debate. Why don't we let them debate?
Thank you, Commissioner Kamali. Anybody else like to talk?
Thank you. My name is Tom Tulare, and I live at 966 Umpqua Road. The development is beautiful, and I'm all for development. What I can tell you is traffic on that road is horrendous. You have school-age children, and it's a hazard out there. That's my primary concern.
Thank you very much. That's it. Anybody else? Attorney Rizzio?
I'll try and keep this brief. First of all, I'd like to submit a petition from about 30 merchants from downtown. There's also a letter, I think, in your record from Economic Development supporting the application. And now, I think it's important to know, because sometimes, you realize, and not that this is ever a referendum of who's for and who's against, but just keep in mind, a lot of the people are here represented, the people who are here, the board members that are here and represent pretty much more than the majority, and I would say almost a large majority of their communities. And they supported this, and we didn't have 100 people sitting here to do that. They have their representatives and they do that. So we've done the outreach, we've done the education, we've done the process that is so important. We did it before we filed. One of the things is, I want to also make you understand, is this is not a TOD that I invented in my office in a laboratory. We've had discussions with staff, we've had discussions with the administration. We looked at establishing a TOD, and why is a TOD in the project linked? This commission doesn't like to just see text amendments without examples of what can be built. Typically, you're encouraged, if you're going to have a text amendment, to put together an application along with it. One of the things that we thought was important was dipping your toe in the water with a TOD. And what do I mean by that? We suggested an 800 feet, and it sounded like it's arbitrary from the train entry to the train station, because what happens in a lot of towns where they'll have, if you're adjacent to a public highway, if you're adjacent to a train station, adjacent to a train track, the platform on the downtown station goes forever. And if you start putting circles, it would take you into all sorts of different neighborhoods. One of the things that the commission, and I thought it was there depending on how you read it, is that you could limit the TOD if you're worried about is properties that are already in a design residence zone, meaning properties that were intended by the commission to be multifamily. Therefore, you don't worry about properties that are not in a design residence zone, because that eliminates them. That would certainly go a long way to limiting the number of properties and not creating an expanse or something that you can't see coming back and kicking you in the teeth and saying, well, wait a second, I never saw that coming. So, and in this area, there's probably three properties in the design residence zone, and that would be Mosswood, Audubon Village, and this property. So those are properties that have already been looked at and told to be multifamily. So if you put that in there, you don't worry about the properties on the other side of the post road. You don't worry about the properties in the commercial district. You've kind of defined where you've decided that higher density zoning, in an overlay district is applicable, and because it's close to the train station, we're going to give you a bump. And part of the problem is, if you just keep, I don't know what you're going to do if you buy all these arguments that we have too much traffic so that we can't have any more development. I don't know how you're going to develop backside. I don't know how we're going to develop our tax base. The key is putting your higher density projects in the spot where they're not going to create an impact on traffic. I know everybody thinks Mike Galante's a higher, he's just going to come out and say there's no impact. We spent a ton of time with Mike Galante making sure that the project that we designed and came forward with you wouldn't have an impact. It's not that we said, here's our project, Mike, now make the numbers fit. Our project was based on his statistical analysis to come through something that would work. I can tell you right now that 15% credit is way too low, and there will be a lot more people that are living here that are using public transportation. I will tell you, if you live on my street, you don't get a credit, and everybody on our street who works in New York City walks to the train station. Nobody's driving to the train station. Whenever I go to New York City, I walk to the train station, and I'm a third of a mile from the train station. That is what's going to happen here. That is what this is designed for. And if we want to grow our town and have a vision for our town, we've got to have the ability to populate our interior. And this is all just going along with your plan of conservation development. If you put this outside of this area, or you put something on 10 acres outside the area, all that's going to do is create the traffic problem, because then everybody has to drive downtown. They have to drive to the train station. So the key is putting your density where the people can walk. And that's what this TOD was all about. And it did not come, this was not dreamed up in my room at night, figuring out this was a good way to do it. It was a combination of a density that this commission has at least given decisions that they're comfortable with. There's 50 bedrooms to the acre that was just approved within the last month on Beaumont Street, which is on a single-family property. It's 12 units on a quarter of an acre. I'm sorry, it's 48 bedrooms to the acre.
That was an 830G.
What's that?
That was an 830G.
It was, look, it's a density this commission found acceptable. All right?
It was an 830G. It was a density that the
they did not
state...
come, they came to your commission for an approval. They did not come in as an 830G.
They came as an 830G. The first time they came here, they were denied. The second time it came in as an 830G.
Secondly, the 50 unit project over on 50 bedroom per acre project that was approved in the other transit oriented district, I think is very appropriate.
Can I ask him, I know it's rebuttal, can I ask him a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. I just, because Mr. Raber brought something up, and I just wanted to, you say you came up with the TODD, I still want to talk about that, the regulations.
Right.
And it was you based some of it on our Commerce Drive transit oriented.
Very much so.
Very much so. I just, and,
But I will tell you, we did add a lot of the setbacks, height, and the things were designed around also the overlay DRD that the property sits.
I'm sure, yeah, and you remember, or do you recall, because I don't know if you were part of it, like the process that we went through to arrive at those regulations. At the time, I mean, I could tell you, I was the chairman along with Mr. Leclerc, who's in the audience now, and Mr. Kennelly was on the commission, and it was a multi-year project involving a consultant, involving community outreach, several sessions, stakeholders. I think Ms. Iacono actually represented the Board of Education. We had all the town boards and the RTM actually represented in the group. We had a charrette, and that's how that arrived. So I'm just...
It was also a much bigger, you were talking about an entire corridor. You were talking about a massive million square foot type of project that was going to be proposed around the train station. Talking about the ways to improve this whole Commerce Drive, which has got to be commended because it's come out tremendously. So what we're trying to do is take a property that is clearly something that's susceptible to extremely high density and bring it into a project that we felt can fit with the community, and using the TOD rather than coming in 830G and coming and trying to say, hey folks, you got your say, but we're going to get what we want. That's not the deal. And talk to the neighbors and not say to the neighbors, hey look, it's nice that you have concerns, but you know what, we'll go to court and we'll figure it out. It was, we've done 6 months to a year of groundwork to get to a regulation that makes sense to a majority of our surrounding neighbors, to come with a project that fits in with its neighboring properties with regard to parking, with regard to height, with regard to setbacks. Yes, the density's higher, but when you look at the length of the buildings, the size of the buildings, the 3 stories of the buildings next to the properties, the length of the buildings, consistent with the length of the buildings that would be permitted in the zone, it was our intent to work with the town on this property that I thought could become much denser, much more highly developed, and try to keep a quality in the neighborhoods that we enjoy and giving a benefit to the downtown. I looked at this as a huge opportunity to make a difference and to make a positive difference. You know, they asked me the other night, very simply, and people were here, if this thing doesn't get approved, are you going to file for an 830G? And I said very simply, it might not be us. We have, I can tell you, a line of developers that would purchase this property tomorrow. And, you know, we're getting tired. We have done so much over the last 6 months to satisfy the needs of all of our surrounding neighborhoods, trying to make sure, I can tell you, Mike Galante can tell you, and this is what's important, your town engineer supports the application. Your town engineer has forced us to redesign the whole thing to fix the drainage over on Mill Plain Road. Your fire marshal has worked with us from the beginning. We stepped out to the fire marshal. Fire marshal says we want a special type of sprinkler system, a sprinkler system that we don't have to worry about. We talked about can the fire trucks get around. The fire marshal signed off on this project, likes the project. We agreed to put the highest level of sprinkler system in this project, yet still have and design at great expense all these turnarounds so that everything here works efficiently without any detrimental effect or cause of any problems on the health and safety of surrounding neighborhoods. So we talked to the police department. The police department had no issue with this. We've talked to everybody in town. We've done all the outreach that you've done, and we've still been able to build a consensus and you know what this is like. And I will tell you, most of the people that support this project will tell you, I did not sit there and deal a club with them and say, if you don't support this, you're going to get 160 units. The people know what can go there. We looked at this as a golden opportunity that we try to take advantage of. It's going to provide revenue to the town. It's going to provide people to the downtown, which this town desperately needs. I can tell you, I'm in that downtown every single night, and we have a great downtown. And what do you do to attract a great downtown? You want people to use it. When you talk about a level of service, the last thing you want is a level of service A on the post road, because that means nobody's traveling on the post road, there's no stores, and everybody can get through downtown in a minute. Our biggest problem traffic-wise, because I live downtown, is 95. That is our biggest problem that ties up everything. Until they fix 95, we're going to have that problem. So what do? Everybody's telling you transit-oriented districts are the way to go. You talk to your head of planning and development. This is the kind of things they're looking for. They want to bring people here. We want to take advantage of the beauty of this precious downtown that we built, and you want people to patronize it. You want people to use these train stations. You want people to get off 95. That's what this project does. Every other town that's been successful has done it. This is not a dense project, and then you talk about, this isn't a Norwalk, Stanford project. This is the kind of project that's in downtown New Canaan. This is a project that's in Darien. These are the projects that have been successful. The whole world is moving toward being closer to all of your amenities. The millennials don't move here because they don't have a place to live. The older people don't have a project or snowbirds or whatever you want to call singing people, don't have an apartment community in town. The first one, and I did a tremendous job on the trademark project. And that project's doing extremely well. I was there the other day. It's beautiful. It's something we should all be proud of. That's the same thing this is going to be. But the architecture is much different. You have a very much of an industrial architecture over on Commerce Drive. Here, the reason that front looks like that is we've retained Jack Franza, was our architect in the original plan. Jack said, let's try and do a Georgian colonial with some townhouses in the front, and it was a 4-story building. We all thought it fit. We met with the neighbors. The neighbors say, you know what? We're 2 and 3 stories. Take that floor off and work with us. That led to a flattening of the building and a connecting of the building. But from the post road, that is going to look like, not from the post road, from Umpqua Road, that building is going to look like basically a 20-unit project. If you go to past Audubon Village, which has a 505-foot-long building, you see maybe 3 units as you go past on Umpqua Road. The only time you see the Audubon Village project is when you pass it on 95. Our project has been dressed up. We broke up all the parks. We put the courtyards in. We have, I know Commissioner Alessi talked about, what kind of amenities do you have? And I took a look at the project snapshot from Trademark and the project overview of ours, and I got to tell you, the projects, amenity-wise, are consistent except for a pool. Now you say, why didn't we put a pool in? The people at Mosswood didn't want to see a pool in. They don't want to hear people making all that kind of noise, having pool parties at night. Where's our public space? It's on the roof, 40 feet in the air, surrounded by roof on each side so that it imposes on nobody. We have beautiful courtyards and landscape areas. But I'll leave these project snapshots for you to see, and you'll see that, first of all, the other thing we did, which everybody enjoyed, at great expense, buried all our parking. The least expensive way to build this building would have been to put it up on stilts, put parking underneath or parking around the side. Instead, we're putting 152-car underground parking. This will be the best train parking that exists in the entire town. This is an opportunity. The TOD was not made, the TOD is a blend of what this commission, through all of its research, came up with was an appropriate density in a transit-oriented district. Anybody who will tell you, Mr. Montelli, I could bring him up, but he's probably heard enough of this, will tell you this is probably one of the best transit properties between Greenwich and New Haven, if not the best. This is an asset we should take advantage of. I, as a citizen, I, as a lawyer, and I, as a principal, think this is an unbelievable opportunity for this town to take advantage of from an economic standpoint, from a way of life standpoint, and I think it'd be a huge missed opportunity to turn down the regulation, because I don't think the regulation exposes you in any other means. I think especially if you limit it to a design residence district. I think all of the underlying setbacks, height, and everything else reflects the DRD as it exists. And frankly, the density is what this commission, I thought, was comfortable with in this type of area. And that's why we did, meaning a transit-oriented area like Commerce Drive, even though it was an 830G on Beaumont. In exchange for all that, we've worked with the neighbors. I'm shocked. I've been doing this 30 years. I don't know that I've ever had a project that was this big that wasn't in an auditorium at Andrew Ward, and I've needed police officers on either side of me. To get a unit of a community of 130 people and another board right next door with something that's going to be built right to their project, where you get the members of their community to come out and speak in favor, that speaks volumes. And I think this commission would do a great disservice if we miss this opportunity. On top of the fact that we preserve this beautiful gem, Ludlow Road, creating a conservation easement, doing the protections necessary in landscaping and drainage to keep that property well confined and not have any impact on that thing. And that's really my summary. This is something that I'm proud of. And I'll be very sad. I think I'll be very upset if this doesn't get approved, not just because I'm the attorney, not just because this is what this property demands. It doesn't demand anything cheaper. It doesn't command anything less done. It doesn't command a developer that's with the integrity that Mr. Montelli has. I mean, you got to understand, we took all of these, a lot of the board members to the projects and show the level of finish and everything else we're going to get. This isn't by luck, and this isn't by threat, that the level of support that you see tonight. This is through a lot of hard work. The same hard work you guys did on Commerce Drive, we did to get here tonight. I apologize for the length of this. I appreciate your patience in dealing with this. We believe this TOD, we respectfully request this commission grant this TOD because we think it's consistent with your master plan. We don't think it's spot zoning, and we also think that it gives you the comfort that there will not be any unforeseen developments that will result from the adoption of this. Secondly, we would request that you pass the special permit for our project at 330 Umpqua Road because it satisfies all your special permit conditions. It has no negative effect on property values. It solves all the safety issues. It has all the public health issues. It has been through every single department in your town hall and has no outstanding comments. I don't know how many times you've been here before that you don't have a list of comments and saying, geez, will you bring back the plans next week and see if you can address those comments? Jim, would you read him the letter again? The guy still doesn't get what the town engineer's talking about. All that stuff has been taken care of. This has been through code compliance. This project has had the greatest level of review of any project I've been involved with in my 30 years of practicing law. For all those reasons, I respectfully request this commission grant this application. Please don't pass up this opportunity. I think it's a great project that'll be great for the town, and thank you very much for your time.
You mind taking a couple of questions? Quick ones.
No problem.
Mine's real quick. Could you explain the conservation bit? Is it that little bit of green on your property or the adjacent piece?
This is our property.
Yeah.
This property will never be developed. This is how we treat our water. Chris, why don't you go? So, through our dealings with Mosswood and trying to keep this whole neighborhood intact, one of the concerns we had was the Ludlow Road name. How do we protect it? look at the distances. The distances are amazing. But there's still this pocket here.
Sure.
And one of the negotiations going through with the neighbor, with the Mosswood people was, look, we don't want anything built back there. You can't build anything back there. Why don't we just make that a conservation easement? No one will have to worry about it. It can never be built on it. It provides a buffer between, because if you look at that one Mosswood building, it sits right on top of it.
Yeah, no, I get the
We don't want the
proximity.
chance of that ever happening again.
But it's a formal thing, there's actually a document, they're gonna, a legal written agreement that they will not build on
We also have a
that.
written agreement that if you move Chris that way, you can't really see it, but a bunch of the Mosswood parking spaces sit on our property, and they'll have an easement, so that
Okay.
they'll never have to worry about those parking spaces.
Okay.
So, when I say about the conservation easement, it's a private thing between the two communities, but there's a written agreement that they will give us a conservation easement so that we know, and the Ludlow Road people know that that property will never be built on. They'll have an easement up front that will allow their parking spaces to remain on our property. We've also agreed to repair the sidewalks all the way down to the train station. We're getting new sidewalks in front of our place. We also, one of the things that makes these entries and exits dangerous is the way they are, is that they're too narrow. You look at the Mosswood entryway, you look at the Audubon, they weren't designed to 2017 standards like ours. They don't have the sight lands, they don't have the ability for cars almost have to get out into the street to take a look. We've avoided that all through planning and working with the engineer. Town engineer also asked us, you notice, bring the sidewalks back. We're moving the sidewalks, so as you come down Audubon Village, the sidewalks almost come across the street. Then you'll note they come all the way back, and then they come back down to meet up with the Mosswood sidewalk. The reason for that is solve the safety issue. If somebody's going to cross, everybody's going to see them, everybody's got time to react. You're not going to wait until you're almost on the street before you can't tell if the person's on the sidewalk or the street. This project has taken every detail, has been thoroughly examined like no other project that I've been involved with. The only difference is it happened before it got to you. It didn't happen because somebody did some sloppy work, somebody didn't talk to their neighbors, somebody didn't talk to the town engineer. WPCA approval's already in place. We did the flow monitoring beforehand. All of this stuff has been done. This is all pervious payment to handle the drainage problem that exists on Mill Plain Road. I can't go on, but and I'm sure Commissioner Alessi would love to hear me talk some more, but I'll wrap it up and say, I thank you for your time. Please, please understand the kind of work that went into this project and the benefits that this will be to the town, and I thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly what my question, but he was trying to get out of here before I asked him a question. You say it's a great opportunity.
Last night at the Mosswood meeting, when it was at the memorial room, I didn't know if that was what I was walking into.
Yeah.
And then when I left, everybody clapped, and I got a feeling they were clapping because I was leaving.
You say the TOD is a great opportunity for the town. It might be a good opportunity for the town if we do approve the TOD with a 20% affordable, and how would you feel about that?
I would think it makes a project difficult. I would think, and I will tell you why. Part of it makes it difficult is to give the treatment that we have here, meaning the underground parking that we have, to do. I would think, I don't know if there's been a request of somewhere in between where somebody said 15%. I would think if we're talking about 15%, we're talking, instead 10% is 12 units. If you're talking about adding another 5 units or something like that, gets to be reasonable, because those are throwaways, they really are. Not throwaways from a financial standpoint. But if we can provide, I'll tell you what, I'd rather personally that we provide a little more affordable housing and make it 15% than lose units. I think the affordable is a very important component. I know I've got kids, I've got friends of ours, of my sons that would love to live in town, that are charged crazy rents down in other places, and would love a community like this that had affordable rents. I would think that we could, I think 20 is too high. I don't think that would be something, given the reduction in density already for what would be considered affordable project. I would think that somewhere in the middle is something that we would certainly be receptive to.
Okay, thank you. I'll close the hearing on this, and I'll adjourn the meeting for tonight.
But if, I mean, you got the public, you just don't know. You know, you get Joel Green here.